All right, the mighty return of DL Hughley.
Yeah, I can't. Well, you always got Michael J. White, and TK. I can't fit in.
You always have a place here, man. It's
and
been
John Sally. I can't compete with all that.
Hey, man, listen. It's been I think about a year and a half since we had a proper DL Hughley. I mean, you made a cameo. You made a cameo appearance. You had a guest verse.
Right.
You know, when your man came in.
Right. With DJ Daniel.
That's right. That was a great interview, by the way.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for joining us in that interview. That became one of our big interviews.
Well, I always love you. I just never want to, like, sometimes I just don't have anything to say. And now there's just a lot more.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to talk about right now.
Right.
Well, first of which I want to start out with the Super Bowl.
Sure.
That just passed.
Right.
Eminem seemed to take a knee.
He didn't see it. He took a knee.
He took a knee. Now, he didn't say what it was for.
Right.
I mean, people are saying, oh, it's because Dre was playing Tupac or something. But it looked like he took like a Kaepernick knee.
Well, listen, I don't know what his knee was for, but I think that the fact that people on the right were angry about it lets you know that it wasn't just about the national anthem. It lets you know that wasn't what it was about. And then, you understand that there are a lot of people, I was reading recently where a lot of 45% of Republicans think that the NFL does too much for black people. Just imagine what black people do for the NFL.
Wait, the NFL does too much
without black people, the NFL would be fucking rugby.
What percentage of the NFL is black?
75.
The players?
75.
75. Mm-hmm. Okay, 3/4.
Sure.
You take black people out of the NFL and you got rugby. Yeah.
And I'm telling you that the biggest, strongest black dudes in the world, the other big, strong black dudes is in prison. It ain't like you have to. So I think there's almost this thing. Like even when you watch the dynamic of the Super Bowl, like I was very proud because it made me proud to be from LA and California. Mm-hmm. It was like a love letter to Los Angeles, and you had one of the founders of Gangsta Rap and and a dude from the East Coast, dude from the Midwest, and a woman from the East Coast. But 30 years ago, they were what police were worried about, Snoop and Dre. And now the world watched them. And they watched them at the Eve at the Dark where I used to walk to, and the burger place where I used to walk to and dancing on the streets of Compton. And it just shows you how that was the best Super Bowl show I've ever seen. And even if it's debatable, the only people who may have done one potentially with Michael Jackson or Prince are dead.
Yeah, I was going to say Michael Jackson. Right. He had a hell of a Super Bowl show.
He might have, but
Prince as well. Yeah.
Everybody else who might have, Whitney had a dope one too, but everybody else who did equally as dope aren't here now. And I just think it was a love letter to a city I love and a state I love, and it was dope.
Yeah, it was great to see LA win.
It was.
Again.
Right.
The Lakers just winning,
right.
And now we got this.
And when you saw pictures of LA, it was like somebody spruced. There wasn't no homeless people, wasn't no traffic. I'm like, where the fucking homeless people at?
Because it's bad in downtown.
It is.
It is bad.
It is.
But this was Inglewood, which is like, you don't have these huge homeless cities in Inglewood the way you do like in downtown.
No. I think it's so unincorporated, but it really is. I have an unabashed love for Los Angeles. This is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And the reason that, like when somebody tells you the first it's too expensive. Well, okay, motherfucker, that's all right. The only reason you live somewhere else is because you won't live here. That's it. It ain't come on.
Hey, man.
You know when a state let you, it'd be like a club that let you in free. Would you fucking go?
Hey, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. You know what I mean?
Would you go to a club with no cover charge?
There you go.
Man, no.
There you go.
We don't charge nobody. Well, fuck that club. Keep it.
Right. Because there's cities out there that'll pay you to move out there.
Exactly.
They'll literally give you $10,000
for sure
just to rent an apartment for a year.
It's states that don't tell you, that won't charge you to live there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They just came out with this thing. In the southern region of the United States of America, it's not just me saying it. The average life expectancy is 7 years less. So your house is cheaper, but you better get a 23-year loan instead of a 30.
Wait, you live 7 years less in the South. Is it the food?
I think it's not just the food. I think it's the environment. I think it's the fact that so many people don't have access to health care.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the places where Obamacare was denied, it was a certain mentality, a specific mentality that made that happen. If you look at the infant mortality rate, particularly in black and brown people in those places, it is because people just have a certain perspective, and that perspective costs lives. And I think nowhere is perfect. No, obviously nowhere is perfect. But you gotta live. You gotta go where the fish are biting. Whatever you want to do, live the places where they doing what you want to do.
Right. I mean, it costs more in LA, but you also get a lot more in LA.
Sure.
You know, everyone I know that moved from Atlanta to LA just loves it.
Yeah.
They're not going back.
The thing is, it costs more to live here. Mm-hmm. But if you buy, I have a friend bought a house a year and a half ago, $750,000. In I ain't gonna say where in the valley, but $750,000. That house a year and a half later is worth $1.2 million. You buy a house somewhere else. Oh, I bought it for $200,000. That's worth $230,000. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you can't move nowhere. Of course,
right?
You can't leave. I think that you gotta. I love this city. I love what it's done for me and my perspective, and I love seeing it win. So that was a big thing for me for the Super Bowl. I think it was the highest rated Super Bowl ever. And it wasn't even necessarily the dominance of the team because they weren't like two marquee teams.
Yeah, I mean, it was a close game. At one point, you're like, oh, shit, the Bengals are up.
Right.
Like, yo, they might actually upset this game. And, you know, Rams came back.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Aaron Donald won that Super Bowl for them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, okay, who got the pass? But if he'd have let them score one time, and him and Von Miller, if they'd have let them score one time, this is a wrap. Mm-hmm. One time. If they'd have got a first down, you know, he took them out of field goal range with some of his sacks. Mm-hmm. So you gotta, and I know that the offensive side of the ball gets all the glitz and glamour, but those dudes clearly stopped you from losing at a time when your offense was sputtering.
Oh yeah, man, the Rams are a hell of a team this year.
Yes,
a hell of a team.
Yeah.
Great game. I'm glad I got to watch it. I almost went. I
didn't get to go.
Man, those tickets though, man.
It wasn't even tickets. My granddaughter, my year-old granddaughter, was having her birthday party.
Well, there you go.
So I had to, I was gigging in San Francisco, Pleasanton. I had to fly to I got off stage at 2:30 in the morning, get back to the hotel, get on, rest for an hour, get on the flight at 6 o'clock, fly to Atlanta, get there at 2:30, and she's so cranky. You know how that 1-year-old, they got to take a nap? I was so mad. I was like, I knew what she would, you know, because she's a baby. So I knew she wasn't going to be, she don't know who and she's a COVID baby, so they only used to being with their families. Mm. So I was like, man, I could have went, but, you know, you got to be there for the first.
Yeah.
She won't see me again till the 5th. But
the next 4 years is work.
Right. I see you, next time you see me at your birthday party, you're going to be 5. And able to tell me you want me there.
There you go. Joe Rogan.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Number one, do you know him at all?
I do know him.
You do know him?
I mean, I know who he is. I mean, I've spoken to him.
Okay, you've had conversations with him.
I've had conversations.
But you guys don't keep in touch or anything?
Not
okay.
At all, no.
When the whole thing came out.
Right.
I mean, first it showed up as him interviewing people that were like, had questionable medical advice.
Right.
That's how it first started.
But I think if you die because you listen to a podcast, you should die. No, literally.
And you deserve to die.
You should fucking die. If you're in dire straits medically, and the first words out of your mouth, I heard it on the podcast, fuck you, pull the plug, go.
Right. I mean, I have a doctor who comes on the show, Dr. Khan, who's an actual medical doctor in Las Vegas, who's been treating COVID patients since the beginning. Right. And it's funny when we post up like clips of him, like regular people without medical degrees or anything else like that will be arguing with him and telling him he's wrong. You know,
it's funny to me, motherfucker. You can't even keep your car from being repossessed, but you know the ingredients of the vaccine, and you understand. You didn't pass school. Like at a certain point, my car is malfunctioning. I don't go to a dentist. When my ass hurt, I don't go to a mechanic.
Right.
I go to people that at least have the potential to have proficiency in what they claim to do.
Right.
You just click yes. And it's really just, we have a romance with stupidity. Mm-hmm. We want to be satiated with stupidity.
And conspiracy. We have a romance with conspiracy. Right. Everyone wants to think that they know some secret bit of information and everyone's been lying to them. Right. But they know. They already know.
When you take a fucking sheep, the shit they give sheep, you are one. Like you are one. Like I hear people to say, what if they put a chip in me? Why, motherfucker, you don't work? They could drive right by and see you on the... Well, they might change my DNA, but then you won't owe child support. My cousin work at the CDC. Your cousin sweep the floors at the CDC. Now, if the vaccine was made out of Fabuloso, we'd ask your fucking cousin's opinion. It ain't.
Not the Fabuloso.
You know, the purple kind can kill Corona.
Not the Fabuloso.
There's a reason why the United States of America has more cases and more deaths than any other country in the world. The next closest country is India, and we're 23% of their population. It's because we're fat and free, but we're not fat-free.
Right. Or how about my favorite is, I don't want the government to track me. I mean, like they do with your cell phone that you carry everywhere, including the bathroom.
Exactly. You don't want them to track you, but you took that stimulus check, right? What do you think? Don't you got to sign for that? You fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, there's somebody comes along that mirrors the mood of America in a way, in like an off way. And like, as far as Joe goes, I think that audiences, just like water seeks its own level, so does a certain element. They seek its own level. Now, I can't say, I don't know him well enough to tell you what I think about his ideas on race, but I can say this. He very much was taken out of context, but he wasn't taken out of character.
Okay, so there was a compilation that had him say the N-word.
Yes.
With the hard R.
Yes.
Well, it looked like maybe about 30 or 40 times or something. It was a huge amount. Right? Now, he wasn't calling someone the N-word, but he was quoting and so forth. Now, you could say, yes, that's taken out of context, but you could also look through the Vlad TV catalog that goes back 14 years with over 10,000 videos. Most of my interviews are with black people, and you will not find a single instance of me saying...
But I've seen a lot of niggas do interviews, so that's crazy too.
We'll leave that one alone.
I'll tell you this. This was interesting to me. Do you know how many times you have to do something to have a compilation? That's a fucking best of. That's an anthology. The Jackson 5 got a fucking anthology. Earth, Wind, and Fire got an anthology. I can't say what I know that one... You can tell me you took it out of context. You cannot tell me it's out of character. Because whatever you've done for 13 years is not, it's pretty much a character trait of yours. You believe it's okay. Now, I think that you can be, you can appeal to a certain element. I've always felt like he was kind of that way. Just on my initial kind of interaction with him, I was like, So I'm not shocked that it happened. I don't think he should be canceled. I don't think that, if somebody says something that I'm not, that I don't spark to, I just don't listen to it. But let's be clear. I don't have to explain your actions. You do.
Well, one of the things that people have brought up is that he has a half black, half white stepdaughter. His wife actually had a baby with the guy from H-Town, who died. In a car accident.
Very unfortunate.
Right? And it's like, oh, well, he was exposed to black people and black culture. But to be fair, that little girl was raised by a white mother without her father present, unfortunately, because of the accident. And then she goes and marries a white guy. So there's not really a lot of...
It's interesting. Thomas Jefferson had black children and a black woman that he kept in a cave next to his bedroom, right?
In a cave?
He did. It was a cave. It was like...
An actual cave.
It was an actual dug-in dirt cave. It wasn't...
You're serious?
Wow. Yes. Sally Hemings, they called it an apartment, but it was a cave. It was a fucking
Well, but that was his slave, though.
That's
that wasn't like his woman.
Right. But when somebody tells me they have a black child or a black step, Gary Owen, who was married to a black woman, has black children that are his, right?
That are his.
I've never heard him say the N-word.
No.
Okay, so all of these excuses...
Well, no, I don't think it's an excuse. I think what it is that the reason I mention it is because, when you have black people that are close to you, they'll usually tell you, give you good advice as to what not to say. You see what I'm saying? They'll usually tell you hey, listen, yes, your black friends might be okay with you saying the N-word around them, that you've known for 30 years, but you don't want to say this in public. And generally, even if they do say it's okay, you probably should just not even say it.
But it's funny? One or two things is happening. Now, Eminem made a lot of money from black people, right?
Yes.
I never heard him say it.
Oh, you didn't? Because I did. The tapes that came out.
But I'm talking about on a habitual out in the open
Did he actually say the N-word? I mean, he disparaged black women and so forth.
In a habitual out in the open way. And if I had heard him say it, I would have a different estimation of that. And I'm a dude who's a proponent of free speech. But I'll say this. If you said it that many times, either you mean it or know that pretending to mean it avails you to something. Either you mean it or you know that pretending to have this mindset works. There's a reason that all the people who listen, all these people on the Fringe who listen to Tucker Carlson and who listen to Sean Hannity gather at the same places because they feel comfortable, right? Yeah. Those people would never feel comfortable around me. So either you actually mean this or flirting with it for an affect.
Well, NDIRE originally asked Spotify to remove all her music because of some of the stuff that Joe Rogan was saying. Then after he apologized, she said she actually accepts his apology. When he apologized, what'd you think?
I didn't care what he said one way or the other, whether it was the nigga or the apology. I just pointed out what I thought was interesting. I think it's interesting that I watched Donald Sterling say nigga one time and lose the Clippers. It's interesting that I watched Paulo Dean say nigga one time and lose a cooking show. And he said nigga for 13 years and made $100 million. I think that it says a lot about who that company is. I've never seen the president of a company come out and say, yeah, he said these horrible things, but we're still going to stay with him. We don't believe that we should silence speech.
Well, that's not true because Viacom brought Nick Cannon back.
No. Nick Cannon had to go away for a year and had to apologize. Nick Cannon got to name his first son. Nick Cannon had to damn near become a Jewish dude. He damn near, we can't pretend like what happened to Nick Cannon was.
Okay, fair enough.
We had the conversation. Nick Cannon's show was delayed by a year and a half till he had made sufficient inroads with the community he defended before he could come back. They took Wild 'N Out away from him.
They did.
So it's not the same thing. Whoopi Goldberg got suspended for 2 weeks, but I've never heard the president of a company come out and say we're going to stick with him. You didn't see it. You'll never see a president, and it's because those companies have a different perspective. Those shareholders, that audience have a different perspective than the audience that listens to Rogan.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Noah had this breakdown of the whole situation. You saw it. You saw it. Brilliant. Right. Brilliant. I'm not really a Trevor Noah fan like that, but after I heard that, I'm like, it kind of changed my mind about him. It was a
spot-on analysis.
Spot on. He basically said there's a big difference between fringe and mainstream.
Right.
And Joe Rogan had been functioning in the fringe for 13 years.
Right.
And you could be as big as you want in the fringe. And he almost compared it to like a nudist colony.
Right.
You could be the rock star of the nudist colony. You know what I mean? You could have your penis swinging around and everyone's giving you a high five and everything else like that. But at the moment that you take that $100 million and you become mainstream, everything changes.
It's so funny because people go, he said that all the time. And nobody did anything. Well, Bill Cosby was drugging bras all the time. Nobody said anything about it. R. Kelly was having sex with little girls all the time. Nobody said anything about it. It is always these delineations of logic that we make.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that 13 years is so long ago and he did it all this time and nobody said anything about it. And you got a whole documentary of a dude who's been drugging bras so long he could retire. Like when you've been drugging bras for 60 years, you could retire from the school system by then.
Well, Andrew Yang actually defended him, and he actually said
he works with black people.
Well, yeah, there's that, but he also said there should be a statute of limitations on racist comments.
Okay.
Statute of limitations.
But there's not a statute of limitations on, okay, the problem with America to me is we make these special dispensations. What I try to be is as clear as possible. I don't personally spark to that, but I respect it. I argue for Bill Maher. Remember when Bill Maher said, nigga, we talked about it. I argue. Because I think there's a clear difference between somebody who's creatively using something and somebody else. But either way, I'm prepared for the idea that people may be offended. Either way. Yeah. I think that free speech needs to be protected because all of a sudden it becomes something else. It's like a club you wield to hold over somebody else's head. But I also think I hate these fall apologies that you don't really mean, that you know, and these ideas that you don't have to. I pretty much try to say things that I at least mean in principle. The idea of it, you know what I mean? Now, obviously, I live in a world where it's the theater of the mind. And I have to let you know how much of it I mean. But elementally, there are things that you say that there is a kernel of truth in. And I will say, I said it before and I'll say it again. Either he meant it or he knew that pretending to mean it would work. Because Spotify didn't hire him in spite of him saying it. They hired him because he did. His audience is big because nothing's more edgy than a white boy saying nigga. Nothing. It means this dude, oh wow, look how brave he is. And then when they equate, the funniest thing is when they go, well, you say nigga in hip hop all the time. Nigga's been the American lexicon since the early 1700s. Hip hop been around since 1970. What came first, nigga or the Sugar Hill Gang? Like Mark Twain or Big Bang Hank?
Right. I mean, because the whole statute of limitations thing is kind of interesting because remember the Justin Bieber thing, when that video, One Less Lonely N-word, and he went on. He's like, oh, if I kill you, I'll be part of the Ku Klux Klan. Right. It was really like seriously offensive. And look, he's the darling of hip hop still to this day. Everyone's dying to get a feature from Justin Bieber, to get a hook, to do a song with him.
Justin when he said that?
And that's what I was going to say. Yes. He was a kid. He was maybe 12, 13 years old. So do you feel there is a statute of limitations when it comes to being underage and being a dumb kid? And that doesn't apply when you're an adult? Or
I think that we have this logic I can't rectify. I can't rectify it. Like in America, having sex with an adult having sex with an underage child is an abomination, which it is. Mm-hmm. But a police officer killing an unarmed child is okay.
I don't think it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's okay. It's not tolerated. They've gotten away with it.
So then it's tolerated.
They've gotten away with it. Yeah,
it's tolerated. So we have these juxtapositions of logic depending on who the person is that perpetrated the crime. Depending we look at things from the prism of the person who did it. What I try to do is to look at the situation. I don't think when somebody goes to court, I don't think the jury should see them, should know their name, should know what sex they are, should know anything about them except this happened, these were the circumstances. Because what it does is play on our biases, our inherent biases. If it's wrong to do a thing for me, it is wrong to do a thing for you. Mm-hmm. It is wrong. I try to be as fair and as plain as possible. But we have the idea of America is at odds with the reality of it. And the idea of America can't sustain it. It can't. Because we were supposed to be a thing, and we find out the idea of America is so at odds with the reality of it that it is killing people to accept that reality. Mm.
Well, the whole N-word part, you could say was taken out of context, was, actually Joe Rogan called it a political hit job.
I saw it. The question then is...
that part sort of annoyed me.
How is it a political hit job when you're not a politician?
Right, there's that. There's that. But the one part that I think you can't really apologize for is the whole Planet of the Apes comment.
No.
Where he basically said, oh, we were going to go see Planet of the Apes, and we got out in this black neighborhood, and it was Planet of the Apes.
And then he said, you heard a little further, and I had a lot of fun. Well, I guess if you go to the zoo, you might have fun looking at apes. Like, I've gotten high a lot of times, and I've watched a lot. I've been to a movie with a lot of black people, and I never saw an ape. And if you get high and see apes, maybe you light that joint with a tiki torch. Mm. I just think...
You light that joint with a tiki torch. That is a joke on so many levels right there.
I do not believe, and I'll say it here and I'll say it flatly, either you feel this way or that pretending to feel this way works.
Right. Because he got offered a $100 million contract from a right-wing platform.
Of course.
Which he denied, of course, but which he did not accept. But still, the fact that...
Name me how a white man can make $100 million in journalism in this country and not be offensive to niggas. Mm. Name me one. Who gets... I'm talking about a big... I ain't talking about somebody who... I'm talking about where they give you a ton of money to do a thing on journalism, because now it's no journalists that don't make that much. You got to be a Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson can't even sell a fucking commercial, but he makes this money. So what is it based on?
Yeah, the biggest journalists, yeah, you're right. The biggest...
are insulting to black people.
Who are the biggest journalists in America?
The highest paid journalists?
The highest paid journalists.
And then they get to hide on the... Listen, You get to say that it's an op-ed, but he shouldn't be believed because it's just an opinion. He's an opinion columnist.
Oh, here we go. Well, Anderson Cooper has a net worth of $200 million, and he's not offensive to black people.
But I guarantee you that his net worth didn't come from what he says. He was already rich, wasn't he?
He was already rich, but I think he actually earned a lot of that money.
Okay, but when
he is a very high-paid, high-profile, not only doing 60 Minutes and CNN and all types of specials and everything else like that. I mean, he earns a lot of money.
Let's rattle him off. I would argue that when you're married to, when your mother is an uber wealthy woman, you might inherit some of that money.
Yeah, his family is where's his family come from?
The Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
but still, he is a very high-paid, well-respected journalist that does not make his money off of bashing.
I would say
really anyone for that matter.
Not at all. But the caveat is, when you are one of the Vanderbilts and you're worth $200 million, I don't know how much of that you earned. Okay. And I don't know how much you inherit.
Well, Trump actually chimed in and told Joe Rogan not to apologize.
Of course.
Don't let them make you look weak.
Of course.
Go ahead and use that N-word with a hard R, the way Trump likes to do at home.
Right.
With his redneck friends. Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Double down.
Right.
That's what Trump does. Sure. He doubles down.
That's what like I said, either you mean it or you know they're pretending to mean it works.
Yep.
And look at the people. There are people who you just wouldn't be around. Like if a motherfucker don't take care of his family, I ain't got to judge you. We just ain't friends. There's nothing, we don't have anything in common. If you say hateful shit about people, I don't know that we can find a place where we can hang out. And I'm not begrudging anybody else their right to feel the same way. There are people who I've known and loved for a very long time. And then they start to say things because I believe this. I don't care how cool you were as a young white guy. When you get older, you're an old white guy. You're an old white guy.
Yeah.
And you start to take on the affect, the ideas, and the persona of an old white guy.
Well, it depends. I'm getting up there in age, and
maybe you might. Now, to every exception, there's a rule. Yeah. But there are people who've been great friends.
Yeah, but I'm also, I don't insulate myself in a white community. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm around black people 24/7, literally. Literally 24/7.
We live in the same community. I don't see a lot of niggas around me. So I'm just saying.
24/7.
Right.
People around me, you know what I mean?
But there are people like the most erudite, the most sophisticated, the most humane people I know don't subscribe to a religious ideology.
Right. I'm not religious at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So to me, I just think that there are things that people will do or won't. And I think that I respect somebody who has this perspective organically. I think that naturally Trump is a sociopath. I think that he naturally is. I think that everybody else, I think that that's what his inclination is. I think he's a narcissist. I think that everybody else who wants to appeal to his audience pretends to be.
Yeah, I mean, listen, apart from the episode that Willie D did on the Joe Rogan show, I've never actually listened to an entire Joe Rogan podcast ever. And the only reason I listened to that one is because Willie's my friend and I want to hear what he had to say. You know what I'm saying?
I can't. Willie's my friend. I've never heard one whole. I've never heard. I haven't ever heard anything of the Joe Rogan experience except when I hear clips of somebody who's, because it just, to me, it doesn't. Listen, I've never watched the fucking whole episode of Friends either.
Me neither.
I've never watched Seinfeld either.
I watched a few Seinfeld episodes.
So I can't, it's just things that don't appeal to me. So I don't, but I'm not, when I hear these things, it resonates with me that I felt that there was an inclination for that to be a potential.
Yep. Kanye and Kim.
Sure.
I felt it was kind of, in the beginning it was somewhat funny seeing him just post all this stuff about Kim and Pete Davidson and everything else like that. But as it's beginning to drag on, he's really, really terrorizing this woman online.
It's never been funny.
Well, he put like the Marvel posters. So I found it kind of amusing. There's definitely a comedy slant to what he was doing at one point. But then it's like, all right, you're telling people to, they want to beat up Pete Davidson, got him in a chokehold. He's reposting all these text messages. It's like 20 posts a day.
I just never, The difference between him and the other dude that get restraining orders on them is hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, because he bought a house across the street from her house.
Listen, I think that I've watched too many times where things like that happen and a woman or somebody's not believed and then things escalate.
Yeah.
He is stalking her. You could think it's cute. If it was my daughter, I'd do something about it. I don't think it's funny. I think that you can't write a beat so good that you get to do these things. And society laughs it off because they say, well, she showed her ass all the time and he's this and he's that and it's that. At a certain point, it is not unusual for men like that. The difference between him and a restraining order is about 20 hits and a couple of $100 million. I just don't think it's funny. I think that Kanye wouldn't get no pussy at all if he didn't write no hits. You know that. Like, he's not the kind of dude. He don't, like, he counts on the shit that this mystique.
Right.
And in the end, she got just as much bread as she did.
Yeah.
And why talk to him? Pete Davidson is a scribe. Like, I don't get what the point is of threatening him. Like, if you threatening the dude that's fucking your woman, all he gonna do is fuck her harder. like all he gonna do is tell you.
And she chose him, obviously.
It's enough. Now I feel
he's not forcing himself on this woman. And here's what else. She divorced Kanye. She said, I've had enough.
And who?
With 4 kids. That must have been a very long decision because it's like there's 4 kids involved.
Well, 4 kids when you on public assistance is a lot different than 4 kids when you got $500 million.
Right.
But at any point, I think any woman wants to have her nuclear family together. And I think that when a woman, like, look, you talking to a dude that's been married 37 years, and I know my woman has had enough of me at times, right? I get it. I understand that. And I would want my family. I understand that too. But if you want your family, stop doing the shit you did that made her leave.
Right, which is what you're doing more of.
How about take your medicine? Just you know what? All that wild shit you was doing that got her, be different. I'm gonna be normal. I'm just gonna take my medicine and see the fucking world right and stop doing the crazy shit that exhausted her. At a certain point, when you get in your 40s, when a woman gets in her 40s and you get in your 40s, all that shit that was fun is exhausting. Fucking, you know what? How about that? Be normal. I'm gonna be a dude that takes care of my family, that has a good time with my woman, that drop my kids off. Mm-hmm. And I can do all my crazy shit on the album. You can't threaten the motherfucker and then drop off a truckload of roses and think that's okay.
I mean, imagine being in a relationship where your form of communication is Instagram posts back and forth. Remember the whole thing with the kids?
Yeah.
I can't see my kids. I can't go to my kid's birthday party. Then she posts a message. Well, the reason why is because blah, blah, blah. Then he posts, oh, well, that's not fair. Blah, blah, blah. You can't put them on TikTok. And I'm just like,
if you got all
you're communicating through Instagram posts. Like, this is so crazy.
But the relationship came about in a certain sense. But I'll say this. If Kanye has all those voices in his head, one of them should tell him to shut the fuck up. One of them. Like, ain't one of them just a regular?
I remember I interviewed Lamar Odom, right? Who used to be with Khloe, obviously.
Sure.
And we talked about the Kardashian curse.
Sure.
And he goes, yeah, people say that and so forth. But if you put a spotlight on your family and follow them around with everything you do, you'd probably see a similar set of, situations occur. You always hear the Kardashian curse. You're obviously part of this story. Caitlyn Jenner, Kanye, where he is right now, Scott Disick. People like to paint this type of story.
Yeah,
when you hear the Kardashian curse, how do you feel?
That's stupidity because everybody go through shit. You dumbasses. If I had your family on tape and seeing all the shit that your family was going through, people would be like, yo, this fucking family is crazy. You see all the drug addicts, all the sex, they shared their life with you. So you see everything. Maybe it's overexposed, but is it? People love it. The people that made them are the people that point the fingers. It's kind of like sickening a little bit. And I now lived it from the inside and from the outside.
No.
And I thought about that and I'm like, well, no one in my family did a sex tape.
Right.
That came out.
They came out.
They came out, right?
Oh, that's the predicate.
They came out. They probably did a few on their own.
And it wasn't with Ray J, even if it also.
It wasn't with Ray J.
Okay, yeah. Well, we keep going. I'm with you.
No one in my family came out as transgender.
No.
Not to say there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's a little different. And, when you look at that whole family, nobody's married currently. Everyone's a baby mother. Literally.
Well,
including their mom.
This whole TV shows about that. I'll just say this. That we live in a world where so many people are devoid of life. They go home to watch other people live.
Right.
And I think that is a interesting pool to swim in, interesting scenario to navigate. I'll say this, at a certain level, I know what it's like to have a woman threaten to leave you that you love and want her back.
Yes.
And I know that you can't do the things you did to make her leave, right?
Right.
So if all this crazy shit, like wearing Trump hats and saying all this vile shit about her family and wasn't what she liked, do something different.
Right. Now listen, in all my years, not only have I not experienced it personally, but I've never seen other people do things like, so my friend terrorized his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend, and that made her realize that she wants him back. It doesn't work that way. It's actually usually you have the opposite. Hence the restraining orders and hence the arrests and hence everything else like that.
This motherfucker's this close to that movie In the Bedroom. Like he's that close. Like it's.
Oh, he can look out the window and probably see what's up.
It's weird. It's
I remember someone posted a video from John Wick, which has him and this other dude shooting at each other, in the subway.
Right.
And it's the caption was Kanye and Pete Davidson taking out the trash in the morning.
And all he doing is a young kid having a good time. Who wouldn't do it? And now I can't imagine that he's not slightly intimidated by all of this stuff.
Who, Pete?
Yeah, I can't imagine he's not.
Yeah, but Pete has money. He can hire security.
He don't have money like that. He don't have money like that. And
he's got pretty good. I mean, listen, he's a Saturday Night Live regular. He starred in movies.
It's got to be intimidating.
Security don't cost that much.
The fact
I have security. It's not that much.
It's got to be intimidating to all of a sudden just be going out with somebody and the dude she was with is not letting it go in a very public, threatful manner.
Yes.
Absent fame, the police is talking to you. Absent fame, judges are issuing restraining orders. And we're watching the same thing, the same shit that we turned the other way when certain people that we loved and thought were talented did things, we turn the other way. And then we get to act shocked when it goes left. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, I don't think it is funny. I don't think it's cute. And I think that it is the kind of thing, because society seems to not get something till they see a documentary about it. Mm-hmm. They'll see, like, I think that it's in a society where our emotions, our idea of right or wrong, our sense of justice is tied to a remote or a DVR. We're probably a little jaundiced. And I think that what he's doing is, if it were my daughter, if it was somebody I loved, I would have a different estimation of it. And I think that any reasonable human being would too. I know you love her, that's fine. But this is the kind of love that is, like, I ain't no guru, but I know this. Hiding across the street and threatening somebody and showing up and sending roses is the kind of shit that people go to jail for.
Yeah, I mean, a restraining order is probably in his future. I don't have to be Nostradamus to figure this one out.
No, you don't. You just have to. You don't. You just have to have lived life.
Right.
And I've been who hasn't been crazy about somebody? Come on,
Yeah, I've never been that crazy. I've never been stalker crazy. I mean, because I guess I've always felt something like, I've always had self-confidence. I've always felt like, all right, well, if you're not interested, I'm the shit. I'm great. There's going to be someone else who finds me, interesting and attractive and wants to be with me if you don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Which Kanye seems to have. Kanye got the ego of this. And listen, he's publicly was dating, Julia Fox and everything else like that. And leave it to Kanye. Leave it to fucking Kanye to have a first date be accompanied with a magazine article and a photo shoot. Can you imagine going on a date with someone and actually having it like...
Well, the dates I have, I don't want anybody to find out about. But the point is, I think that it is, I think that we're so jaundiced and jaded, and now we think everything's for our entertainment. And that these are not human beings. Like, I respect the fact that he might feel this way, but I respect the fact that you have a woman that if a woman has moved on as she has 4 kids, she done had enough.
She's had enough. Yeah.
Enough.
And I think the problem is that in today's society, unlike, when you and I were younger, is that there's no real sense of privacy anymore when it comes to personal relationships.
No.
I have people that I have problems with right now, right at this very moment. And I've thought, let me call this person up and have a conversation with them. But then I think about who that person is and what their track record is and what their, how they are. And I realize this conversation might be recorded. And it might be posted on the internet, which has happened to me. I've tried to work things out with people only to have them do exactly that.
I've seen it happen.
You've seen it happen.
Yes.
Right. So
we talked about it.
We talked about it. Right.
Absolutely.
So you're
let me turn my phone off. Hang on.
So you're kind of stuck in a way because people have so much access to suddenly put all these private situations on public display that it sometimes stops you from being able to actually work it out with the person privately. So you end up just having these public spats that just kind of go on forever.
I know. Listen, I think the bravest thing any human being can do is love somebody. I really do. I think that because you can never tell how it's going to be received or interpreted or even projected. I can't say that. We have had these conversations, and I, have found myself in these situations. And I think that ultimately all you can do is be exactly who you are. And I think real human beings will understand. Look, you can accidentally hurt somebody. You can, at a moment, personally do something offensive to somebody, feel bad about it, and then want to make it right. All you have is where it comes. All you can control is the vehicle it leaves in. You can't say what. You might get in your car and intend to get to the airport. What happens to you ain't up to you. It ain't. It's other situations, drivers, lights, other circumstances. But I'll say this: if I'm wrong, I never really apologize for telling jokes or trying to be ironic, but I will apologize if I made an observation, a judgmental observation, and it was off or hurtful. And if the mood strikes me, but I think you are right that we live in a world that is so. Everybody got a brand to protect, like it's like everything, and so I think when you have this thing that you are supposed to be and this thing that you are, the best thing for me is to have both of those things be as congruent as they can be.
Right. Bill Cosby has a new documentary called We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby.
Right.
Have you watched it?
I
have too. They actually used some of my footage in that film.
Saw.
You actually show up in the background.
Yeah, I saw.
Which they did not clear, by the way. Our lawyers will reach out and work that out. It was a very interesting documentary. Michael Jai White was on my show the other day. And we talked about that. I'm like, well, some of these stories with these women, with these 30, 40-year-old incidents, the way they were described seemed somewhat one-sided. The interaction seemed like there were certain things that were purposely left out and so forth. And he goes, well, he said, and this is someone I know very well, who I consider a good friend. He said there are 3 women that he personally knows that have approached him way before the Cosby thing came out, way before Hannibal Buress blew it all out the water and everything. He said there's 3 women that he personally knows that have talked to him that were sexually assaulted by Bill Cosby and never said anything.
Think about how many women haven't even come forward. Like, again, I told you, I knew people,
so people that have never come forward who told you in private these stories.
Dude, yeah.
How many women?
3.
3?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're telling me that, then I believe it. Apart from him and probably other close friends. They never came forward. They never filed a lawsuit. They never did this. So he's been known about this for years.
So have I. I mean, my ideas on what he was and are well documented. So
women that have been assaulted by Bill Cosby that never came forward.
I will say this. The reason I didn't appear in a documentary because everything I've had to say about him, I've said. And I was saying,
oh, so they approached you about it?
I said this.
I feel like they went through the Vlad TV catalog and hit up all the people that said anything about Bill Cosby.
I think that
made a documentary out of it.
I think that everything I've had to say, I've said. Mm-hmm. And I think that in the end, the onus is on a society that looked the other way that long. And now they have forfeited the right to pretend to be offended. People look and yet they were right. Like they wanted to believe a thing. And I think that, when people talk about how it was like this and you could give Bill Cosby got all the pussy he wanted. It was the drugging thing. I don't, you don't give
adultery, I don't think is that big of a deal because it's really just between him and his wife.
Your old lady.
That doesn't affect anyone else.
But and this is what you have the right as a woman to have a drink with somebody, to have a nice situation with somebody, to tell if you're interested, mm-hmm. without having your mood altered to take the choice away from you.
Right.
Look, baby, this is what I am, who I am, it's what I want to do. You with it or not.
Yeah.
When you we ain't here if you give them that choice. And you still get just as much ass.
Yeah.
You still get just as much ass.
You are still Bill Cosby. You're
exactly.
still worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You're still the guy on TV that everybody loves. You still have a fantastic catalog.
Right.
There are plenty of women that says, well, I don't know your wife, so it is what it is.
I do not understand, and the onus is on a society that looked the other way because of what it wanted to see. You know who looked the other way? It's like a child that puts the blanket over his head because he don't want to see the boogeyman. If the boogeyman was real, that fucking blanket ain't gonna stop it from an axe, but that's the kind of irrational things we do. Yep. I also do think that what they did to Bill Cosby was a miscarriage of justice. You can't tell us everything.
Yeah.
And you can't be charged. And if you are charged, we won't use the thing I said about you against you. So I can say this. I can hold these two ideas in my hand. Bill Cosby is a rapist, and he shouldn't have been in jail when he was.
Right. I interviewed Tom Esro, who was his lawyer, where he lost.
Right.
The first trial and so forth, and we went through the whole story. And you're absolutely right. He was given an official piece of paperwork from the district attorney that said, you get to say whatever you want, and it cannot be used against you. In fact, it's going to be sealed forever.
Right.
And the fact that later on, another district attorney ran for office under the platform of, I'm going to get Bill Cosby locked up. And we even found the commercial for this shit. Like, it's real.
Right.
And got the judge who had a beef with the old district attorney to somehow unseal it and break that deal and put this man back in prison. Well, not back in prison, but in prison. I feel that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania did the exact right thing.
Exactly. It's almost like I can hold these two opposing ideas in my head.
Yeah.
With who he was and what happened to him. There is, at a certain point, if you have enough money, you can avail yourself to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's unfortunate. But ultimately, you gave a man an opportunity to be truthful. He was.
Yeah.
Because also in our judicial system, you have the right to not incriminate yourself.
Right.
Bill Cosby has enough to not say anything and look, and I guarantee you, had he not said nothing, there would have been a jury in the country that would have convicted.
He would have been convicted or not convicted?
If he had said nothing,
yeah,
just denied the allegations and let his mouthpieces speak for him and put people up and indict their character, he'd have fomented enough reasonable doubt where nobody would have convicted.
Right, exactly. And that was the reason why they even did it. The reason why they had him say certain things is because I think the district attorney wanted something so that the victim could do a civil suit, which she won. She already cashed out. And then she came back and...
That's a problem for me. You can get justice, but not twice.
Right.
And it depends on what your idea of it is. Look, I think that Bill Cosby changed the fortunes of black people in this country. I think he got America to see us in a different way. I think that Barack Obama's not president without him. I think you don't have this large influx of black people going to black colleges and that is the foundation of corporate America and jurisprudence and the legal system. I think that's absolutely true. But he also is a rapist.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Like, as a content creator, what kind of struck me in the beginning was the importance of owning your own shit, because they went and did a whole episode about the Cosby Show. Yeah. They got NBC to license all that footage to use against them. You know, they were like, hey, do you guys know what kind of doctor he is? He's a OBGYN.
I saw it.
You know where he practices? In his basement.
Yeah.
You know, so you're painting it to look like, oh, he's really telling us the way he is.
That was really my, okay.
But you know,
now,
but that's all like,
but even though
that's all documentary, like smoke and mirrors.
The
like,
documentaries usually take you on a bit of a journey.
Exactly.
That was very linear to me. That was
very linear.
Like I knew where we were going.
There was not a single person that documented that actually said, actually, you know, he was a great guy.
Or a single neutral thing.
No, there's no neutral people.
Not that there has to be. I get it. But when you have,
you kind of have to have some level of balance.
And I think that for me, I think, like anything else, I watch things that show me perspectives I wasn't aware of or thinking about or wasn't privy to. Mm-hmm. I think nothing shocked me. But having said that, also a part of that is it's really hard to get anybody who has something to lose to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, he even said a lot of people turned down the documentary, including yourself.
Yeah. I turned it down because I didn't want to. To me, I wasn't scared to say what I said before. It just didn't seem to be a nuanced enough. It wasn't interesting enough. Yeah. I was going to say the things I said before, but only under different lights and cameras, so it didn't seem that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Jai White, who's been on my show, he was in it. You know, some other people that I've interviewed were in it. But, you know, at the end of the day, documentaries are a motherfucker. I mean, that's what got Michael Jackson hemmed up.
Yeah.
Right?
R. Kelly.
That's what got R. Kelly hemmed up.
I would never, I've only seen one person do a documentary and didn't go to fucking jail. That's Janet Jackson.
Well, she did her own documentary.
That's what I'm saying.
She did it herself.
It's two things black dudes need to stay away from: documentaries and Gayle King. Stay away from that shit.
Well, they're actually trying to put Bill Cosby back in prison again. They're trying to revive the sexual assault case.
I think that it has very little chance to go.
I agree. You know, and what I don't understand is, like, if I was Bill and if I did that shit, or if there's enough people lined up to say I did that shit, which is the reality of his situation, why even risk the chance of staying in this country? I would just be out.
Well, it would mean more to me if they did it to the powerful. Like this country has a propensity for going after low-hanging fruit. Athletes, entertainers, go after presidents.
Yeah.
I respect, you know what? Turnabout's feel for you have 60, so you have a lot of women who accuse you of something too. But all of a sudden we're wasting our time on the dude who this time will be thrice indicted, right? 3 times. Mm-hmm. Not one. So this idea, this justice can't be just us. And I just, you know, like I said, I hold these two ideas in my head. I think he did it. I think that they positioned it in a way where whatever else happened was going to be tainted by their malfeasance. And now it's just no point about it. Like, you know, you watch TV shows and they go, we can't use this. We collected the evidence wrong. And I think that that's the case. The evidence has been so tampered with that now trying to reintroduce it, it already has a baked in, there's not very many people in the country who already don't know how they feel.
Yeah, pretty much. And we'll see what happens, man. He's an old man. Like I said, if I was in my 80s, I mean, hold on. Let me see how old Bill Cosby is.
Almost 80.
Bill Cosby age is 84 years old. 84 years old.
But I tell you what's so interesting. You ever notice that as soon as Bill Cosby got out of jail, he could see again?
The blindness went away.
Like, I guess the cure for blindness is
cured.
bail. Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Did you get laces? No, I bonded out.
Suge Knight, too. Yep. Remember Suge Knight suddenly lost his eyesight? Right. You know, in court.
How you going to be blind and read the small print? That's crazy.
Well, and you actually touched on this already. Whoopi Goldberg was suspended for 2 weeks from The View. She's back now.
Yes.
And, you know, what she said as a Jewish person, I didn't actually find all that offensive. She basically said, when she talked about the Holocaust, she said, it's not about race, but about man's inhumanity to man. You know, this is white people doing it to white people, so y'all going to fight amongst yourselves. When it comes to Judaism, the race and religion thing is very fuzzy.
It is.
And for someone who hasn't been Jewish like their whole lives and kind of grew up in it, being a Russian Jew and having to move out of, and everything else like that. It really, there's a whole kind of aura and nuance about it where you do feel it's a race because, my mother was Jewish, her mother was Jewish.
And because of what Hitler said. But here's the thing.
And with Hitler, I mean, he chose a group of ethnic people and killed them, right? But I can understand someone who isn't Jewish to think that, okay, it's just a religion and this is just white people. Like, I was just like, it doesn't seem like it was that big of a deal.
Well, I guess to people who here's the thing that's interesting. There is no way to have a nuanced conversation about something as abominable as the Holocaust. There's no way to do it because people are going to not hear you halfway through it.
Yep.
And so there's no way to have that conversation, so it's pointless. I will say this, having said that, I will say this, that it's not hard to get. Like, I understand that Hitler called it a race, an inferior race.
Yes.
But you can convert to Judaism. I right now could convert to Judaism.
Well, which actually brings us to an interesting point. But go ahead and finish your point.
And you can't convert to blackism. You can't convert to that. You can.
Rachel Dolezal would actually argue with that, but whatever.
And look what there are people, like, even when they were committing these abominations, they had to differentiate them. They had to show that he's different from me.
Right.
They had to put
they had to wear the Star of David patch.
Because they couldn't. You couldn't just at first glance see somebody.
True.
So I can understand these two things that you can't.
Although a Jewish person can look at another Jewish person and know they're Jewish.
Listen, I can't.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, it runs deep. As someone who's been Jewish for 48 years, yeah, I could tell. I could also tell. You probably can't tell a Russian from a Hungarian, but I could probably tell.
But what about an Ashkenazi dude from a Sephardic?
From a Sephardic Jew. Well,
could you tell that?
It gets a little fuzzy.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. It gets a little fuzzy at that point. Or an Ethiopian Jew. Can you tell an Ethiopian Jew from an Ethiopian Christian?
Right. So we can't. When you say anything, that is a large range of people. But I'll say this: it is. We don't have. It seems ironic that we have a show called The View where you can't express it.
Well, so the interesting thing about, and you talk about, converting, is that once I actually dug into the story a little bit, because I'm like, okay, hold on, Whoopi Goldberg, that's probably not a real name. Sure enough, it's not. Of course, it's not. Karen Elaine Johnson.
Right.
She converted her name or changed her name to Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Cushion, but Goldberg is a Jewish name.
Right.
And in the beginning, I guess her mother even said that, if Johnson wouldn't be accepted as a Jewish name, so she actually, pushed for Whoopi to actually change her name to Goldberg. And in the beginning, back in like 2011. Well, not in the beginning, but at some point, 10 years ago, Whoopi actually said, "Oh, I'm Jewish. I don't know why people question it and so forth. I grew up Jewish and everything else like that." But then later on, there was like a show on PBS that actually traced her lineage, and there was no Jewish anything in her lineage. They tested her DNA. It was 92% sub-Saharan African. So essentially, according to one account, Emma Johnson, who was her mother, thought that the family's original surname was not Jewish enough for her daughter to become a star. So she changed her name to a Jewish name to become a Hollywood star, which people seem to forget. And now, years later, she's being, canceled over Jewish comments, which is, to me,
I think that it's a jump ball at best. It's ignorance. If you want to say that she didn't dot her I's and cross her T's. I certainly do not think it was a malicious place. But I also
don't think so either.
There's no way to have that conversation in normal everyday parlance in this country, because almost everything you say is going to be, we don't have conversations like that to learn. We have conversations like that to pick stuff apart. We have conversations like that to say, what, but that? So ultimately, I think I most certainly wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I do know this. Ain't nobody who's gonna say something offensive saying it at 11 o'clock in the morning when people are watching.
I mean, I think
I
think the Jewish community is overly sensitive. As someone as part of that community, I will say that they overreact too often, which a lot of times almost creates some of the friction.
Sure.
Over the overreaction. As opposed to saying, whatever. But that ain't that big of a deal.
I tell you how I just think we have we know what not to say. We know where the landmines are for the most part. And I think that doesn't really mean that we're having true examinations of our feelings and true interchange. It means that we're having the one that we feel is safe. And I think right now that's failing us because we have killed discourse and murdered discourse. Even I don't have to agree with you to know that you have the right to say what you say. I don't have to understand it, but there is a true amount of respect that it takes for somebody to form a thought. I think that people now listen to indict and listen to destroy and listen. Like even when we do interviews, you know that if you word the statement this way, it's going to be more provocative, right? That's just, and you can do that in journalism or what you do, even it's this. But if you do that in conversation, we have now, because most people don't read the whole article. Most people don't listen to the whole story.
Right.
They don't listen to the whole conversation. They'll hear the thing you said, and that'll be the tone of the interchange you have. And I just think now when we need to have an understanding of people's perspective, we don't. And it's interesting because in the same time Whoopi's suspended for saying something once, you have a dude who's not suspended for saying something for 13 years, and the juxtaposition is hypocritical.
Yeah, he didn't get suspended at all. You're right.
I'm sticking by him. We don't. So I can't live in a world where I can't help but notice a world that has these kind of stark examples.
Dave Chappelle was recently filmed at a community meeting.
I saw.
Where he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that there was a housing project that was planned to go up in his city where he lives. And he had a problem with the low-income housing part of that project.
Right.
And he said in the meeting that if they go forward with that part of the project, he's going to pull all his investment out of that city, which I think $65 million.
Right, it was.
And I had some friends who are not into entertainment or whatever else that hit me up and they're like, damn, like they're actually kind of shocked when they saw that video. And it's not like he was paraphrasing or, he's being misquoted. There was an actual video of him saying that. You know Dave Chappelle.
I do.
What were your thoughts about that?
The first thing I thought is that it's not too much different than I said with Rogan. You could take somebody out of context, but I think it's the character I look at.
Okay.
And it seems against his character, so I'm willing to what I want to do is get some level of context. So I saw the video and I've seen it a couple of incarnations of it. I don't know what preceded. Now I feel like a police chief. We don't know what happened before. But I will say that as it is presented in the media, it seems out of character for the man I know and respect. So I don't know, because everybody was saying, well, it's low income housing, or so I don't really know enough about it to make an informed opinion. But if I did, and if I had found out that were at first blush what it would seem hypocritical to me.
Well, I think people, are enamored with Dave Chappelle, the comedian.
Sure.
The stand-up.
Sure.
Who has brilliant stand-up, sure. Like The Closer and everything else like that, which I thought was absolutely brilliant and did a great job and so forth. But you sometimes forget that this man's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars kind of want it their way. They push around their weight to have the environment that they want to live, that they would like to live in. At the end of the day, this is a city, like, where does he live? In
Springs, it's in Ohio.
Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Right.
I've never even heard of that place.
I've been there a couple times.
You've been there?
Yes.
To see Dave Chappelle?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. You go there you don't just pass through Yellow Springs, Ohio, because you have some other
and we were in the middle
there.
of it. But here's what I'll say. I also know what it's like to be a man.
Yeah.
Who is taken, particularly a man whose society. Listen, I don't want to be conspiratorial, but it's weird to me that he would have this dust up here, and then this comes up. So I don't I would like to hear things with my own ears and my own perspective and come to my own conclusion. But having said that, if it were, I don't have a problem saying that what my estimation of what somebody does seems out of character with the image or the idea I had of them. I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. But I just all I've heard and seen are these two clips, and I'm like, okay, let's see.
Yeah.
But I know. Here's what I'll say for me. When I was a kid, there was Proposition 13. You didn't live here then. Proposition 13. It took out. Now I was living on 135th and Avalon. I'm in the 8th grade. Proposition 13 comes along and it attaches everything to your property taxes. Mm-hmm. Well, if you live in Calabasas, you pay a lot more property taxes than you do if you live on 135th and Avalon. Yeah. And everything's commensurate. Mm-hmm. They took our after-school programs away. They took our busing away. I had to walk to school. They took all the things that made our communities more livable. They took away. Here I am. That same bill comes up 40-some years later, and I'm on the different end of it, and I think a different way. Mm-hmm. So whereas the 13-year-old me had a problem with Proposition 13, the 52-year-old me went, so I can also understand those nuances. But for me, when I hear this thing, because I want to make sure that I'm being as clear-headed and sober and honest as I can be, I just heard that for the first time yesterday. So. Yeah. It's just, I'm like.
I mean, he hasn't spoken about it. Right. He hasn't addressed it. He may never address it. Right. It may just be one of those things where it's like, I'm just going to leave this one alone.
Silence is often misunderstood, but never misquoted.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day, listen, man, this is a guy that set up shop in the middle of nowhere because he loved the city. Right. When I watched, I think when he was on David Letterman, right. On Netflix, walking around the city, just talked about how much he loved the city, how much he loved the people.
It only took 2 minutes to walk through it.
Right. It was like 3 blocks. Yeah. And it's like, so you mean to tell me that someone who just falls in love with a city, who in the middle of nowhere, where, listen, Dave Chappelle could live in Beverly Hills. Yeah. Dave Chappelle could have a place in New York. Dave Chappelle could live in Paris, right. London, whatever. He has so much money that he could live anywhere on earth in the exact same type of house that he lives in Yellow Springs.
Yeah, less corn, but
less corn, but just as much land. He could buy that much land in LA if that's what he really wants, right? But he chose to live there, and he put millions of dollars in there, and he's created his own little world there, and he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So when he said it, it didn't sound all that out of character. It's like, this guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, so he's going to try to create, the most, the environment that he likes the most. And if that means going against what other people want to do, and he's got $65 million of weight to push around, I think a lot of people would have probably done it like that. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't admit it. Everyone wants to maintain, we're for the people. I'm for the poor people. I want to but.
Well, I said this before. We co-opt the language of the poor, but never their fight.
Exactly. So, you said that. You said that in
everybody got
an interview that you did.
Everybody got I'm poor story. And
I've got an I'm poor story. Yeah. My family came over here from what used to be the USSR with literally nothing. My parents couldn't speak the language. English was not my first language. And over the years, I made the American dream. But I still talk about my poor past. Right. I still talk about living the projects in Springfield, Massachusetts and stuff like that. But the reality is, did I grow up poor? No, I did not. I grew up in San Mateo, California, in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Yes, it wasn't the mansion that I live in now, but it was a comfortable home. It was safe. I lived in a nice middle-class neighborhood. I never had to go without. Right. I never had to miss a meal. Yes, my parents couldn't buy me everything they wanted, so I started working, still in high school. But I don't have the rags to riches.
But America's is predicated. I know. I'll say this: what people will buy is a level of consistency, and I think that if you are generally in almost all situations who you portray yourself to be or what you evoke, then no matter what you do, there's pretty much a level of acceptance. But I think when it comes to comedically being a champion for the people. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody ever puts that moniker on themselves. I think that people just kind of in the zeitgeist, put that in the zeitgeist, and all of a sudden it becomes, it takes on a life of its own. I think that you have to understand that there is a commerce and the reason you do a thing and the artistic component. They don't always have to be simpatico. But to me, when I hear these statements, I want to know for me what came before and what came after, because I have no problem telling you how I feel about that situation. To me, I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you at first blush what it strikes me at. And I didn't have enough. I don't feel like I have enough perspective to make a statement. Not even a statement, because I would say something funny or just give you my broad blush assessment. I don't have it yet.
Well, who really is a comedian who's a champion of the people? Like,
No.
who really? I can't. When you said that, I started thinking. I'm like, nah. I mean, you got comedians that start out broke, right? But at one point they become rich,
Right. If you do it right,
and they talk about rich shit.
If you do it right,
you know what I mean.
And
Dave Chappelle doesn't talk about struggling in his stand-ups anymore. He's talking about being rich now.
I think that it's funny because when I was younger and I had a broader continuum of experiences, it is what I drew from. Now, a narrow continuum of experience is what I drew from. Now it's broader, and my perspective is broader. And I think that people want. The thing about black people is I remember when Black Panther came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people going with kufis and spears and fucking drums. Like we were in front of Sbarro with a fucking drum circle. But that's how bad we need to feel good.
Right. Or when Malcolm X came out. Remember that
that's
whole
how bad
era?
we need to
Everyone was
feel
wearing
good.
the X hats and
Right.
the African medallions
Right.
and everything. I mean, in my high school, I saw that.
That's how bad we need to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody makes us feel that way, then it's that much harder. Bill Cosby made us feel a way. Michael Jackson made us feel a way. R. Kelly made us feel a way.
Mm-hmm.
So once you can connect to this feeling of uplift,
Yeah.
it is like there. I guarantee you that most people in our community, or maybe if I'm being generous, 50-50, feel like something happened and nobody's telling the truth, or they're being railroaded. They feel like that, and it's because of the other feelings that are commensurate with that. I danced to R. Kelly and Michael Jackson. I conceived children in them. I watched Bill. So once somebody makes you feel something, you're connected to it.
Yeah. Well, I actually thought about something when you were saying it. In terms of being, a comedian that stands for the people, actually, Chappelle actually had that moment when he walked away from the Chappelle show.
Sure.
That was that moment when he walked away from $100 million because he felt that his comedy was being embraced by racists and so forth in the boardrooms and so forth. And I remember Nick Cannon, when he, was about to quit America's Got Talent. I remember he called me and we had a conversation about it. And he was like, yo, I want to get that Chappelle thing. I want black people to look at me the way they look at Chappelle when he walked away from the Chappelle show, by me walking away from America's Got Talent. And that's the thing. I think that situation when Chappelle did that is sort of romanticized who he was and what he would do in terms of his principles. So I think that once this came out, it's sort of,
that's probably
you see what I'm saying? It created like a dichotomy, like, oh, wait a minute, I thought that he was this and now he's that, and I can't, and he's not saying anything, so all I have is this video, and it's a video, you can't say that he's misquoted. I mean, it's a video and he's saying what he's saying. So I think that's what happened.
I think you're probably not wrong.
There you go.
I think you're probably not wrong.
Cat Williams had an interview recently when he talked about Eddie Murphy.
Right.
And he said, by the way, do you know what I'm about to say right now?
I do.
Okay. You do not? Okay. When they asked him about Eddie Murphy being the best stand-up comedian ever, he said, don't tell me Eddie Murphy is your favorite comedian because Eddie Murphy hasn't done comedy since the 80s. It just doesn't make sense. It's about how much body of work you put out. So nobody knows who was beefing with Mozart because the guy beefing with Mozart didn't put up any material. That's why history takes care of all that.
I gotta say this. I think you are what you continue to do. If a shark ain't a shark no more if it don't swim.
Right.
A bird ain't a bird no more if it don't fly. After a while, that is literally what you're living off your laurels. You're living off what you used to do. Mm-hmm. Remember Napoleon Dynamite's uncle? You said, I used to be. So there is a level of achievement where you can get well, you have all of these trophies. But if you don't do it anymore, then you're not that. It's really simple. Like whatever I don't do anymore, I'm not. Stop doing anything anymore. You could be the greatest bodybuilder in the world. Stop listening for 6 months.
Right. I don't think that people consider Schwarzenegger as the greatest bodybuilder these days.
No. But I'm saying you are what you continue to do, what you hone,
right.
what you doctors, you could be the most proficient surgeon in the world, but you still have to keep abreast of new techniques, new technology. You have to do that. So I think you are what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember I interviewed Charlie Murphy. This never came out because I think I lost the tape. But I remember I went out to Jersey, went to this little, coffee shop, and we interviewed him. This was right after the Chappelle show ended. And what he told me, which still bugs me to this day, number one, let me just go on a tangent, is he said that the next season of the Chappelle show, Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, was going to have Eddie Murphy in it.
Wow.
Eddie already agreed to do it.
Hilarious.
He was actually going to act and be on the Chappelle show, right? But then we start talking about the whole stand-up and everything. And I'm like, people consider Eddie, to be the greatest stand-up ever, and Raw and Delirious, the greatest stand-up movies ever, blah, blah, blah. How come he doesn't do it anymore? You know what Charlie said? He said, honestly, because he'd be whack right now. You can't just jump into stand-up. He said he would have to go hit the club circuit and do show after show and get his chops down and get his timing down and figure out what the crowd reacts to. And then doing all that, then at the end, then he might get that crown again, but you don't have time for that shit. He's doing movies. He's doing big shit.
You are what you have to do.
Yeah.
I gotta go on the road. That's what I am.
You don't have to go on the road.
I gotta go. Like,
really?
I'm not even talking about the financial aspect. That's what I have to do.
Okay, so
that's what you are what you have to do. What makes you go?
Yeah.
What makes you the thing you are? And you can only be a thing if you're it. If you keep doing it. Would you go to a lawyer for a big case and hadn't practiced in 25 years? No, you wouldn't.
Right.
You wouldn't. I don't care what he was. Is a powerful thing. Is current. I'm this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not what I was. I'm what I am.
So apart from yourself, if you take yourself out of the equation, who do you think is the baddest stand-up comedian right now?
Right now?
Right now.
Because it depends. I would say people that, I think that Chappelle is awesome. I think that I haven't seen Rock in a while, but I'm sure that when he comes out, I think Said is on fire. Cedric Entertainment's on fire. I think Deion Cole is hilarious. I think it's so many people that I'm fans of, but George Lopez is hysterical. I think what qualifies it for me is if I know them and then happen to see them and they shock even me.
Right.
Like I'm a fan of yours.
Yeah.
I kind of know where all the moves are.
Yeah.
And then you shock even me. And and so I think that would be my criteria. But I think there are so many people who just are really, the art of stand-up is in great shape if these people are doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way about TK. Like I've done a million interviews with TK, but when I see him live, it's like, whoo, this is a whole different ball game. The TK's crowd control and everything.
Monster.
He's a monster.
He's a monster.
He's a monster. He controls
but he has no problem letting you know he's a monster.
Well,
I don't even know if you can love TK anymore because he has so much room to love himself. But he is a monster. You're right. He is.
Yeah, and Cat Williams actually said, I believe it was one of our interviews, where he actually said that Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock are funnier than him.
Okay.
Because I've never been the funniest person on the planet at any point. So now it doesn't matter if people have a different opinion, and it doesn't matter if my fans think differently. They're biased. They should think differently. Mm-hmm. But now Dave Chappelle has always been funnier than me. And Chris Rock has always been funnier than me. I've always been aware of who was funnier than me.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of, you gotta be pretty humble to say that.
The funniest men I've ever, I just don't know anybody. I've seen them and went, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that comes from. But
who are the funniest? Okay, the funniest people I've been around. It's funny because I'm not a huge fan of Mike Epps' stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of his movie,
right?
His movie work. But off camera, just hanging out, Mike Epps is fucking out of here.
If you're talking to me about the funniest human being I've ever met, not on stage, it's Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy, okay.
The funniest human being I've ever met, off stage. He's funny on stage too. No, he was funny on stage. I've never met a better storyteller than Charlie Murphy. And I'm talking about, I'm a Mark Twain. I read Mark Twain. This motherfucker was as funny. He is the funniest human being. And not even just funny, but he was the most engaging human being I've ever been around.
Yeah, and the crazy part is that like I've interviewed so many people around that Charlie Murphy Prince basketball game story, like Mickey Free, who was there. You know, who else? We just did an interview with Howard Hewitt, who was in a band with Mickey Free and remembers the phone call he got from Mickey, the next day. And that story is actually true.
Yeah.
That's what makes these stories so amazing.
And the way he takes his time, it's just, the most fun I'd ever had on tour was with me and Sid and Charlie and George and Eddie Griffin went on tour. And after the show, we would just go to see what the fuck Charlie was talking. He was such a great storyteller. And I don't know if I was gullible or wanted to believe it, that when Charlie died, because he convinced us he wasn't sick. Like he convinced us, not only did he convince us, he convinced his children too. Like he wasn't, it was not.
He looks like that last season of Black Jesus.
Yeah.
He looks sick.
He did.
Yeah.
And I'm a reasonable dude, man. I'm a sage dude. And I was like, okay, if this nigga say he all right, he all right. And then I was like, then I get this call from Rich and he tells me, that he's gone. And he did what Charlie does. Charlie he let me know what he wanted me to know, believe what he wanted me to believe. And I did it. And I think he did it to everybody. And I think a lot of people were shocked. So when I look back and see the thing, and he obviously looked like he was not doing well. But hearing him, I'm talking about 2 months before he died, we was in the green room in fucking Dallas, laughing and talking till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So
Charlie's dope, man. Listen, I got to interview him one time and we hung out a little bit, and then he invited me to a stand-up, you know what I mean? I think at Caroline's or something, and it was it was a moment. I was glad to actually experience that with him.
He's the funniest storyteller.
I mean, honestly, you could honestly say, seriously, if you take one step back, I don't think the Chappelle show would have made nearly the impact if it wasn't for Charlie Murphy.
Of course.
I think Charlie really made the Chappelle show. Take Rick James and the Rick James story and the Prince story out of the Chappelle show, and you do not have the same level.
So he's the Scottie Pippen of the Chappelle show.
He's the Scottie Pippen. All right, let's talk about that. Since you go ahead and mention it, Scottie Pippen. Mm-hmm. So you had posted up a video where Scottie Pippen's saying, I'm just as good of a basketball player as Jordan, and then it had a whole bunch of people rolling their eyes and all types of other stuff. Now, I interviewed John Sally.
I saw,
who actually, they're not armchair quarterbacks like you and I.
Right.
He actually played professionally with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen on the same team, as well as playing in their prime, as well as playing against them.
Right.
And he said that Jordan is not the most skilled player he's ever played with. It's actually Scottie Pippen.
You can go on YouTube and see what Michael says about Scottie. See what Magic says about Scottie. Jack McCluskey, the general manager of the Detroit Pistons, how we thought we're just going to shut Michael down. We realized we had to shut Scottie down, right? Mm-hmm. Horace Grant, Charles Barkley. Did I mention Michael Jordan, what he said? So skilled. He plays point guard, shooting guard, small forward, big forward, and center. He can guard anybody on the court. He's Dennis Rodman. Can dribble the ball, right-handed, left-handed. The fundamentals are built into his swag.
I saw.
So I kind of feel like, everyone sort of clowns Scottie for that shit, but here's an actual expert opinion of someone that's actually saying.
Well, here's I remember when Jordan left, and they came within one bad call going right back to the Eastern Conference Final. Right?
Yeah.
One bad call. They would have went, they call that foul, they go. Who was it? And they won, I think, 1 or 2 more games than they had the previous season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know this. Jordan never went to a conference final without Scotty. Scotty went without him.
And look what happened when Jordan came back without Scotty.
Yeah.
Not a damn
So
thing.
you got people always it's like the first part of the meal, they forget the last half. The totality of his career concludes the Wizards too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And he was whack. His whole team wanted him off. You know what I'm saying?
You said like you could take a whack team, like Kobe Bryant took a whack team
and made him great
to the final.
No, I mean, listen.
Like he took him against Phoenix 7 games.
I interviewed Gilbert Arenas. I don't know if you saw this interview, right? But basically, they brought him into the Wizards to really get rid of Jordan.
Right.
Right? Because the actual teammates, because Jordan was on the Wizards acting like the Jordan of his prime, and all the young players were sort of getting upset and annoyed because he wasn't performing at that same level. And I remember it was a hell of a story where Gilbert said that the owner gave Jordan a $10 million check and told him that he's being let go. Jordan took the check and tossed it and walked away.
So when I went there, that was actually one of my questions, or my dad's question, like, hey, what's up with the Jordan thing? Why didn't you sign him back? And, Abe Poland was like, I love basketball. I love the players. So I asked the players, what did they want? And the players said they didn't want Jordan back.
The players did not want Jordan back. Because, I mean, this was not, the dream team Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
This was Jordan at the very last part of his career.
Yes, but you're talking about MJ still. So
Icon.
it's mental MJ too. So
Right.
it's still like the Last Dance MJ, that mentality, those young kids wasn't ready for it. So they're looking at an icon who becomes this, this bad guy to them.
Oh, so it was like an abrasive kind of
Yeah, like
relationship?
MJ, I won, 6 championships. What the fuck y'all gonna do for me? It's that MJ.
Yeah.
So, those guys are like, we don't want him as an owner. If this is what he was as a player, we don't want him as an owner. So that was, him explaining that, okay, it's like, all right, cool. Because I'm an MJ fan, I go to MJ's camps every summer, I'm one of his counselors. So, trying to figure out what happened, and he was like, yeah, I wrote MJ a check, $10 million, said thank you for your services. MJ threw that check and said, fuck off, and drove out of the arena. And I'm sitting there like,
Wait. Jordan threw away a $10 million check? I mean, in real life, he actually did that? No, come on. I want that type of money.
Right.
To toss a $10 million check.
Where did it go? 'Cause that,
right back into the bank account of the owner. That's where it went.
right,
It was an uncashed check. But yeah, no, I mean, listen, Jordan was a motherfucker, but he had a hell of a squad. And it's hard. I mean, listen, if you take Michael Jackson out of the Jackson 5, there's probably some astounding singers in that group.
Yeah.
That if they had actually if it was up to them to hold that group together, you could have seen some phenomenal work
but it
come out.
wouldn't ever risen that high.
But you got Michael Jackson with you.
Yeah.
So everyone just has to take a step back and be a background singer.
It doesn't even, like, to me, people get mad. Kobe Bryant's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm a Laker fan. I've never seen a man with that single-minded level of determination. And I've never seen a man win without his nucleus. He said, I can win without Shaq, and did it.
He did it.
Like, I've never seen Magic Johnson win without Kareem. I didn't see Bird win without Parrish and McHale.
Yep.
I didn't see Jordan win without. Now LeBron has won without, but Kobe Bryant won 2 championships in a row without another first ballot Hall of Famer winner.
Yeah, he didn't have a super team around him.
He didn't have one. Name me
LeBron
one.
always has.
One,
except for on the Cavaliers.
Okay, but
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving could be a first ballot Hall of Famer eventually.
Fair enough.
I don't know who on the Lakers, like Lamar Odom, Paul Gasol, he'll make it, but I don't think he'll be a Hall of Famer. Derek Fisher won't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So he did it against the greatest defensive team, the Boston Celtics at that time, or at least 2. He got beat by them, but they had a team with 4 Hall of Famers, or 3 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, being great, like really just world class, greatest of all time, great. It puts you in a different stratosphere.
It does.
I interviewed Tito Jackson, and the Jackson 5, or I guess it was Jackson 4 at the time, was already a group, and they already had a lead singer and everything else like that. And then little Michael sang at some school performance, and everyone's like, all right, never mind.
I'll never forget.
Lead singer, youngest kid.
I was at the Greek Theater.
Okay.
And I'd gone to see Jeffrey.
Was it in Berkeley?
The Greek Theater here.
Oh, here. Okay.
I'd gone to see Jeffrey. Me and my wife had gone to see Jeffrey. Whitney Houston opened for him. And I was a huge fan. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Osborne now. When Whitney Houston came out, I went, she won't be opening for him again. I remember halfway through I was like, you know what? This is it for him. And I was the hugest fan. I didn't know who she was, literally. I had no idea who she was. But when she was finished, I didn't even want to see him. And I had come to see him. It was my, I love this dude. I'm taking my old lady. We're going to see this dude. And I like, we can go now. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, my man, Greg Street, I remember sending me this interview he did with L.A. Reid. And L.A., basically had a label deal under Clive Davis, right? And he had signed all these artists and, all these local acts and everything else like that. And like, Clive wasn't putting any of them out. And he was like, what's the matter? He goes, come down here. I want to take you to a little performance we're going to do. And he brought out Whitney Houston. He goes, see? This is what we put out.
That's why.
He goes, oh, I get it.
Right.
I need to sign better artists. This is who I'm competing against. I've been doing it all wrong.
Right. I gotta fucking scour the corners of the world
compared to Whitney. Yeah. I mean, Whitney was a powerhouse. Yeah. I mean, shit, I interviewed Darkchild, Rodney Jerkins. Yeah. When I asked him who the greatest female vocalist of all time, he said Whitney Houston. This man has sold hundreds of millions of records, done records with her as well as Michael Jackson and everyone else, and said, name me a national anthem better than Whitney's.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
I'd say Marvin Gaye, but okay.
Okay.
I'd say that. Because it was just some old different.
Yeah.
I liked it when nobody else did. So yeah.
Okay. You can say Marvin Gaye.
Not lyrically, but just some old
that's a male,
arrangement
right? On the female side, yeah. No, I mean.
I thought Roseanne Barr killed it.
She like grabbed her crotch and spit.
Yeah, I think that. Man, she could. Carl Lewis, did you see that one? No. Yeah, I think, Whitney did the best one.
Michael Blackson.
Mm-hmm.
I think on Martin Luther King Day, did an Instagram post asking if Martin Luther King had a white side chick.
Right.
Cat Williams called him a coon in the comments.
Right.
Do you feel that was, as a comedian, that's off limits, or do you think that's just
anything's
comedy?
off limits comedian?
Okay. So you thought that was a valid joke?
I think that whether I like it, see the thing, I think most of us just tend to judge things on what we like, and if we like it, the validity is associated with what it feels like to us. But our sworn vocation means that we find humor when other people don't, and that extends past our perspective. So I think when I saw it, I knew what the visual reaction would be, but I didn't think. I remember how mad Jesse Jackson got at said in Barbershop for doing a Martin Luther King joke. So
wait, Jesse Jackson did a Martin Luther King?
Got mad at Cedric the Entertainer in Barbershop because
Barbershop, yeah.
He said he got more ass to the toilet seat, and Jesse Jackson got upset. But I'm just like, we can't be in the business of being comedians and then deciding where people should go or to kind of limit them creatively. So I think that's when I saw it. I saw and I posted everything. I saw what happened, but it didn't strike me as offensive. No.
Yeah, I mean, really, nothing happened to him.
No.
You know what I mean?
It didn't. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
I'm very like. I mean, one time, what do you think about white people dressing in blackface? I think they should be able to dress in blackface. I think the minute they do, the credit score should go down and their blood pressure should go up. Like if they want to dress in blackface, we should have Election Day on Halloween. That way you dress like us and they suppress your vote too. But I think I think that there is an ironic twist to virtually every circumstance I've ever seen. And that's why there's a tendency on my part not to give people latitude. So if we were talking about Rogan and those were all jokes, I wouldn't care. It would be, and I don't even care now, but I just think you have to decide if I tell a joke and it's a joke and I'm just gonna leave it alone. I remember when people got mad at me for a joke I told about Debbie Reynolds right after she passed on. I'm not.
Wait, about who? Debbie,
what was this? Carrie Fisher, whether she passed
Carrie Fisher,
on.
okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is, if you can't take a joke, fuck you. I'm not in the, it's not my position to have to explain whether I mean it or not, or whether you think it's funny.
What was the joke?
I forgot it now. Oh, I said, when black people lose their kids, we don't die. We just put their name on the T-shirt. Like,
right, because Carrie Fisher's mother died right after Carrie Fisher.
Right. Something like that, yeah. And it was just, and I remember people got upset. And the thing I don't understand is the anger about something you don't think is funny. If I don't think something's funny, guess what I don't do? Laugh.
Right.
I don't go, I'm mad at you for If I go to a buffet and they serving some shit I don't like, I don't go get it. I don't go, how come they serving this shit that I just don't understand. Well, I'm not a fucking child. I go to the Four Seasons and they have the best brunch ever. You know what? I don't get mad at
Do
people.
they still have the brunch? Hold on.
Yeah.
No, hold on. I need to make a point because you brought that up. Because the fact that like the Thousand Oaks.
No, not that one. Not that one.
Like the Four Seasons brunch is no longer there, which has been a staple in our community for decades.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm very angry right now.
Yeah, the Beverly Hills.
Oh, they still have the brunch?
Yeah, they still
All
have
right.
the brunch.
Okay.
Or still did when I but I don't get mad when somebody feels a way, unless I'm paying for you. Like if you like if my wife, I can get mad at her because we're family. Or my kids, I can get mad at them because I pay for. I give them money. But if somebody just has like something they think is funny, I don't. I just go, well, I don't give a fuck that you think it's funny.
Well, but
or a song or.
I mean, but look. I mean, but the reality of society changes. You could say evolves. You could say devolves. You could say however you say it, but it does change.
I think that listen, people feel the way they always felt. They just are afraid to have those conversations out loud. They are just as hateful, just as homophobic, just as racist, just as misogynistic. They just pretend to.
I don't know about that. I think that if you're in an environment where certain things are considered normal and even encouraged, that might make you form a level of opinion based on fitting into a group.
Right.
I don't think anyone's born hateful. I don't think anyone's born racist. I don't think so.
I don't think they are either.
Look at kids. Go to any schoolyard and you look at kindergarten kids. They're all playing with each other. Right. Asian kids, Spanish kids, black kids, white kids. As they get older, the segmentation starts to happen.
I will make that I'll tell you. I'll give you this caveat. They play with each other at school. They'll try to go home with one of them. I don't care how young you are.
Now you're talking about adults, though.
Yeah, but
the adults might have a problem with it. The kids themselves don't have a problem with it.
But the kids pick up on. Kids don't do what you say. They do what you do.
Exactly.
So even before you've told them anything, like I hate when people go, "I wasn't raised that way, motherfucker." Yes, you were.
Right.
You were. You were raised that way.
Yeah. And
now you're saying this thing by rote because it's what you say. We tell our children what to do by what we do, not by what we say.
Right.
And if we said enough of these things if I can learn a different language as two, I can learn the language of bigotry, misogyny, racism at two.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that you have jokes. You go back to like the Eddie Murphys. You go back to jokes in the 80s where they're using the F word. There's lots of gay jokes.
Right.
There's lots of trans jokes and everything else like that. You go back to the 60s and 70s, there's probably a lot of racist jokes.
Sure.
By white comedians. They're considered funny and acceptable. Sure. And maybe even black audiences might have even laughed along because that was considered like not a big deal and so forth. They don't translate into 2022.
No, because we've learned to listen with a different ear. It doesn't mean, if you want to know how people really feel about something, go to their social media pages when they don't have their name under it. Go watch them go under their avatar when they're speaking, just and nobody knows who they are under the cloak of anonymity, and see that's America right there.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said, get away with. No, listen, I've always said that you should not have anonymous social media accounts. Right. I feel they should be illegal.
Me too.
Illegal, meaning that you could get fined or possibly even jailed for having it, because I never had the luxury of being anonymous.
No.
I was already a known DJ when MySpace launched, so I've always had to watch my mouth. I've always...
But okay, here's the thing. I don't think white people should be able to obscure your view in any way. I don't think they should be behind curtains. I don't think they should have blinds. I don't think that they should have, because if you look at the people who are making the decisions and the rules and the norms, they are people who pretend to be one way in public and another way in private. I think that when you get to vote on the jury without nobody knowing why, there's a certain effect. When you get to make a vote cast a ballot, nobody knows why or how, and you don't have each other. We count on anonymity driving this idea of bigotry and separation forward. We need darkness to do it.
Right.
We need darkness to do it. And I say, what my mother told me something one time. She said, well, you can do whatever you want as long as the door open. Whatever I want to do. Do you know how hard it is to try to get you some ass when your mother's walking by. But whatever you can do with the doors open. And I think that if we're that a society that we constantly talk about transparency, we constantly talk about being open, but we do everything in the dark. I think that it's antithetical to the idea. I think people should be allowed to be what they are. I don't think racists should not be able to eat. I don't think they should be police officers or judges or bankers. Mm-hmm. I don't think they should be in any position where they can get to control somebody's life or liberty or circumstance because of their idiosyncrasy. I don't think that should happen. But I don't think they should die. I don't think they should be not. I just think that they should be used car salesmen, or you could be fucking Amazon, whatever you got to be. It just can't be where you can
janitors,
right? Whatever, yeah. But you can't have a.
There's Bob the racist janitor again.
Whatever, niggas
yelling at all the black kids as he's sweeping.
But I just don't think you should be. I don't. Yeah, there he goes.
There he goes again.
Speaking span. I don't think you should. I think you should be able to. I think that you shouldn't have. There's certain positions that your perspective should disqualify you from. In medicine, in corporate situations. Like if it's your company, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Mm-hmm. But if you get get some kind of subsidy or even a benefit or a tax break from the government, that's our company. Mm-hmm. And you got to act accordingly.
Yep. T.I. started doing stand-up.
I think that's dope.
Have you watched the stand-up?
I have not.
I have not either. But apparently, according to the reports, it actually got a good response.
Okay.
People were laughing and everything else like that.
I think T.I. is a great performer. And he's a great storyteller. So like you could take the corporate president of IBM, which doesn't exist anymore, and you can put him over Apple computers because it's a skill set that makes it better. But I'm talking, well, it's not what it was. But you could take, because it's the skill set that transfers. So I think he has a skill set. He can captivate an audience. Mm-hmm. He knows how to perform. He knows how to tell a story.
He's got a fan base.
He can sell
out venues.
And he knows where the moments are. Yeah, that ain't that hard. It ain't like he wasn't a mortician now if somebody came from.
No, listen, I feel like, I've interviewed so many comedians and I've gone back and forth. I've always felt like if I actually had the time, like if I sold my company, I might try stand-up. Just try it. Why not? Worst will happen, I'll get booed off the stage.
Right.
Oh, well.
No, I don't care who you are. Here's the problem. You're going to get booed.
Right.
I don't give a fuck who you are.
Exactly.
You're going, now one day you'll learn how to avoid it. You'll see it coming and get off early. But you're going to get.
Yeah.
So it is what you do when stuff ain't going the way. Because after a while, you are not a novelty. After a while, you're not interesting. After a while, I'm just listening with a specific ear.
Yeah. What
happens then? So I'm not shocked that somebody who has the raw makings to be a great comic is having success.
Have you gotten booed?
So many
times.
But you know what? Here's the thing.
Let me ask you, have you gotten booed in the last 10 years?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that physiologically, your body doesn't know the difference between a sneeze and an orgasm. And I think a comic should know the difference between a boo and a laugh. I don't think that's... I've gotten booed because people didn't like what I said, or they thought it was mean, or they just get it, or whatever. But I think that what somebody thinks of me is not any of my business. And I think your body, if you took a graph of your body, a heat index of your body, you watch what it did, it's the same, it's the build up, the climax and the resolution for a sneeze and an orgasm. It feels the same way. It doesn't know what it's getting ready to do. I think a laugh and a boost, you feel the same.
Well, yeah. And I mean, to be a stand-up comedian, you really got to hit people every 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Like you can't tell a joke that takes 3 minutes to tell, where it's just silence through the whole time.
I think that I don't know that there's wherever I get to be, however long the ride, the view better be that great. However long you take me to get there, it better be worth what I do.
Okay.
And I think that's 10 seconds, 5 seconds. I don't know that there's a metric like that, but I do know that wherever I go, you'll drive a long way to go to a great restaurant.
Yeah.
You'll fly a long way to go to a dope destination.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because all the shit you got to go, if you got a great job, traffic ain't so bad.
Right.
If you got a shitty job, living in the building you work in is a motherfucker.
I mean, do you feel that black audiences are harder than other audiences in order to really break through? I mean, once you're established and they already know who you are and they're buying tickets to your shows, they're already prepared to laugh. But if they're not already familiar with you.
I think that I've noticed that there are things I know about people who've had my shared experiences. So that may make me comfortable. So I would say that the level of comfort is different around people I know.
Okay, fair enough.
But I don't think human beings outside of experiences are different.
I remember in the Fat Tuesdays documentary. You watched it?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it yet. But so for example, in the Fat Tuesdays documentary, right? They had Steve Harvey on there. And he was saying how, like, you perform to a white audience, you're not doing well. They'll be like, oh, like, he's trying. Okay, good for him. A black audience will, like, start looking at each other, put their arm over the chair, start having conversations amongst each other and so forth.
Listen, I think that people organically want you to do well. And then they get uncomfortable when you're not. They don't want to. There might be a dickhead to an audience. They want you to do well. But I think the level of comfort is internal. It's that you feel, oh, they look like me, so I have a kinship with them. When I go to a restaurant, I look around and see if it's a black dude in there. Like I like, okay, because that is about my comfort. But being an entertainer, I think, specifically being a comic, is about being uncomfortable. I just don't think you can ever name me somebody that achieved something where they're moving forward, where the goal is to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And if that's the goal, then you're in the wrong business.
I feel you. You know, the Fat Tuesdays documentary, this was an era that I missed. I did interview Guy Torrey, though.
Right. I just did too for Fat Tuesday. Right.
Okay. And I didn't realize how important that night was.
It was.
And you were part of it as well, right?
I did. Well, here's the thing. I never went to Fat Tuesday.
You never performed?
No.
Okay. My bad.
And I didn't do the documentary because I didn't perform. But
right.
But it was because of this. I come off the road. I just it just was weird to come off the road where you've been working all weekend and then go somewhere and joke around about the things you were just earning a living with Tuesday. So I got to fly out Friday again. So it just never worked its way out for me. But I think that it was an invaluable part because I think what was important was that at a time where black people didn't have a place to be and agents didn't have a place where they could feel comfortable and go, it provided that. So many deals, so many people, so many shows and movies came out of that dynamic that it was obviously a valuable thing. I just didn't participate in it.
Well, you were doing Kings of Comedy by that time, right? So you were already like, you didn't need the launching pad. Did you already have the sitcom by that time? Yeah, okay.
But it wasn't, to me, it's just, one of the things that's important to me is to keep my perspective pristine. You know, and the thing about, chefs don't cook for chefs, they cook for people. When you start to do jokes for comics, you become a different thing. Chefs don't cook for chefs, they cook for people.
Okay.
You don't play music for musicians, you play music for people.
Right.
If I start telling jokes for comics or started trying to please a jury of my peers,
that's a good point.
I become a different thing. So my perspective is not to knock anybody else, but for me, I want my footprints to be the first ones in the snow from my perspective. And I think that's just...
No, I feel you. Like, I mean, I don't give a shit what Charlemagne or, you know, academics or Adam 22 think of my interviews.
Right.
I'm not doing it for them.
Right.
I respect these guys.
Right.
And I think they're good at their craft.
Right.
But I'm about the people.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't hit up, Charlemagne, what do you think of that last interview?
Right.
You know, if we talk and they mention they saw something, cool. And I'll mention I saw some of theirs, but yeah.
But imagine a room where everybody's at.
Oh.
I'm like, nah, I'm not going. Because then it's just about, I think to be a great champion, you got to play away games. If you play home games all the time.
Yeah, that's why you went to Fox News.
Yeah, that's why I went to Fox News.
That's why you went to Fox News.
Yeah.
Tristan Thompson. Just had a new baby.
Yeah.
And the story goes that he actually tried to pay $75,000 to abort the baby. I guess there's text messages to the child's mother that basically said, I'm about to be an unemployed basketball player. So you're going to get a couple $100 a month. So you might as well take this $75,000. It's a better deal and so forth. And of course, those text messages came out, and then the whole Chloe thing and everything else like that. Now, we've talked about this in the past. You had a child outside of your marriage, which unfortunately passed.
Right.
My condolences once again. When you, based on your own experience, when you saw Tristan going through what he went through, what did you think?
I was glad it wasn't me. I was glad it wasn't me.
Better you than me.
But not, here's the thing. I think when you are young and you are making, I just think when you're young, period, or when you're selfish, and I think you have to be selfish to have a certain mindset. I think when you're selfish, you honestly, when I was doing what I was doing, I never felt like it was wrong to have a lot of women. I didn't at all. I think you get tired of hurting people and you run out of wind. And I think he's very young. And I think right now things may look decidedly different than they do later on. But the first thing I thought was, nigga, I'm glad that ain't me. Woo! Thank God.
You said in one of our interviews, you said that one of the funniest things, you said, family's supposed to, you said, what did you say? You said, your wife is supposed to find out about your side babies at the funeral.
At the funeral.
Which is how God intended it to be.
Yeah, that's what God wants you to. That's what. Like, Mama, who's that over there looking like that? Shut up and get in the car.
That's the way God intended it to be. You're supposed to find out at the funeral, where you don't have to deal with the repercussions of it. You're dead.
Man, social media, phones, I'm not even bragging about this, but it's true. Most of the men I knew had families on the other side of town. And they would take care of both families on a janitor's salary. And the women would kind of know. Like they would say, hey, take these clothes over to such and such. Or take this food over to such and such. Right? Like you never knew. I've known people, I've been at school when motherfuckers found out they had the same dad. At school, like I've been there when it happened.
Really?
Like at school.
They found out they had the same dad.
When they found out they had the same daddy, it'd be like, ooh. but I think under the auspices of nobody knowing and don't, it was 3 things you had to do when I was young, when you were gonna be a man. And it was the only, you had to take care of your family. Mm-hmm. You couldn't let no mess come to your house. And you had to be home before the sun came up.
Before the sun came up?
Yes, before the sun came up. 5
a.m.?
I was like, bet, I got that.
Check.
I can do all that shit. But that was because they got to not know shit, but now they don't. It wasn't a point, like when I found out my father wasn't my real father. There are 2 things. Like
wait. I don't know this part of the story.
I found out my father wasn't my real father, right?
So your father was actually your stepdad?
Hughley's my stepdad, right?
Okay.
And
so your real name, your last name is actually?
Would be Ballard.
Okay.
But I never knew that. So, like I was with my father from the time I was born. I was born to my father, but he wasn't my father, right? So.
Okay. So your mom started dating your stepdad while she was pregnant?
My mom, yeah. My mother left my father.
While she was pregnant?
While she was pregnant with me, yes. And
it takes a strong man to take on a woman pregnant with another man's child. So shout out to your father. And he was with your mother, like, you know.
Let me tell you.
Bravo.
When I found out about it, because everybody thinks that you should know shit.
No.
And I was like, I could have not known this.
He was a black guy, right?
Yeah, it's a black guy. I mean, if it was a white guy, I'd have wanted to know.
It was an Asian guy. I'd be like, wait a minute.
Come get me now. But I was angry because people, and the 2 things when it comes to my father, that people listened and gave me information that I wasn't, that I was like, that I could have went my whole life without knowing. We could have just been lying to each other. I'd have been cool. I didn't need that information. I remember when my father was dying. I don't know if I talked to you.
Your real father, or
my Hughley was dying. He died
okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we were talking during that.
I was so mad at my wife and my daughters because they were like, he would want you to be there, and when I saw my father, he didn't want me to be there. He didn't. He was like, because you have an idea of your father that you never an idea of your father will sustain you. The idea of your father will sustain you through your life, because you see this figure. It's almost mythic. But then you see your father weak and sick and hurt and struggling to breathe. I was so mad because when I saw him, he saw me and it was like, I don't want you here and you don't want to be here. And I was ashamed, and I listened to them. And it's one of the reasons that you got to form your own mind, because the images that women have, he knew I was there to cover. I don't have that anymore. Now all I have is the image that you told me would come from me, and it doesn't.
So did you meet your real father?
Yeah. I met my real father right before I did mine. And I met my real father because my wife insisted that, because I was, so she's like, I got to find out where this shit comes from. So she meets my real father.
Okay.
Right 10 days before I did my third or fourth HBO special.
Okay.
And he comes, then we go to the airport to pick him up. And he comes out and he looks just like me.
Really?
And he was, and my kids, fucking sellouts, was jumping all over him. Fucking happy and shit.
Fucking sellouts.
these fucking sellouts. So then we go home, and I was on the Hughleys then. Mm-hmm. So imagine me and your father when you're doing a show with your other father's name. So I came home from work, and they were all in the pool, and he was cooking, and they were like they fucking, because to them, they saw a dude that looked like me. So it was the best shit in the world to them. And I came home, and I said, you have to go. And I said, get your stuff, you leave.
You kicked him out?
Yes. And I took him, I said, I never want to see you again.
Oh.
Because if I do, then I'm going to assume you're a man, and I'm going to treat you like you trying to hurt me. Like they're like, I'm giving you a rap. So he leaves. Come to find out, my wife has kept in contact with him the whole time. When he dies, my mother calls me and said, your father died. And I go, oh my God. But it was Jerry Ballard, it wasn't Charles Hughley. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why are you all upset? Turns to find out she had a different relationship than she told me she did. So she had kept in contact with him all the time. Huh. So my whole basis was, I thought he had done something crazy to my mother, but she had a relationship that I didn't. And I learned to just listen to my first mind, because I felt like I was in the front to Charles Hughley. And it would you have the heart has capacity for love and understanding. And now I'm a man who's been in that situation where I've had, and if I had gotten a chance to meet my son, I'd have loved him. And when you're older, you'll get a chance to say, hey man, this is what it was. And you hope that his experiences has given him you enough latitude to be able to have that conversation. But I think listening to other people in these like really interesting places in my life has robbed me of the chance to have an organic experience that I would have been able to navigate better had I just listened to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, let's just say some 30-year-old walks in the room and said, hey, you're my real dad. You don't know him. You never raised him. You never changed his diapers. You never fed him. You never disciplined him. You didn't see him go to school. Right. This is just, it could be anybody. Right. You know what I mean? Like, your son could be right here sitting next to me, my cameraman. Like,
Wait, surprise!
Surprise! Yeah, actually.
Hit the drums.
Now that we mentioned it.
You know what? I've been trying to get you to do this.
What I'm saying, like people think there's some sort of bond between a man and a child and so forth. But if you don't know this person, like listen, man, look, as much as I've done over the years, I could probably have some kids in different parts of the world right now. I don't know. I hope not, but you never know.
To me, what I would have liked, and you look, you make all kinds of mistakes, but I would have liked to have an opportunity to come to those decisions on my own without having either watching my father die or having a relationship with my real father. It would have been, you should have left those decisions. Give me the information and let me make those decisions. Because now I have a father that I lost, that I saw that I shouldn't see die, and then another father I never got to know because I listened to information from people who had maybe my best interests at heart, but it was filtered through their perspective. Sometimes the only thing we know about our fathers is what our mothers tell us.
Yeah.
Sometimes the only thing we know, the only thing I know about that man was what she told me.
Yeah.
And You can be a horrible husband or horrible mate and a good father. But I think they want you, it's like almost like Mean Girls. I want you to not like somebody because I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do is you live your whole life guessing at what not to be.
Yeah.
You get, and so I just those times, and it's one of the reasons I fight so hard from my perspective, because at least I can live with a decision I make with the information I gather in, and I come to this conclusion. But if it's altered by somebody others interjecting their perspective, so it's just that's always been not even more. It's now more pronounced because it's now I see where listen to people even though they're well intended. Like my wife, she adores me. She would never. But now I got the.
But now she's been.
Now
she had this little side.
I'll make the judgment
relationship
about what
with your real dad that you didn't know about all these years.
Yeah, I cannot. Yeah, I'm like I'll understand. I'll decide what I need.
There you go. I mean, speaking of marriage, since our last interview, Will Smith wrote a book.
Right.
And he talked about Tupac in the book. He said, "I hated that I wasn't what Tupac was in the world, and I suffered a raging jealousy. I wanted Jada to look at me like that."
I saw that.
And the two of their relationship is so, I don't know, just you scratch your head because it almost seems like something bad happened between them and she's going to publicly embarrass him over and over again until whatever's fulfilled in her heart.
I can tell you this. I've made so many horrible mistakes in my relationship. I'm in no position to talk, but I will say this.
Okay.
You're not fearing to tell my business on TV all the fucking time. I want to go on the red table. Hey, bitch, you better talk to this kitchen table. You think we living this good because those set it off residuals? You think they making Nurse Hawthorne too?
Jason's lyric ain't
right, they ain't doing that again. And Tupac is dead. He is. So at a certain point, I think the grace that we generally extend to anybody else outside of our partners, we have a hard time extending to them. And there's a certain amount of grace you need to have with somebody who you've taken vows to. There's a certain amount of grace you used to have. And that seems decidedly ungraceful to me.
Right. Down to the entanglement.
I'm like,
August Alsina.
I'm not. There's a certain amount of like even if you can lie to protect too, right? Like you can go. I don't want.
I've done lots of that.
But if you just did fucking, I'm in no position to speak about somebody else's dynamic. I will say this again. There's a certain amount of grace you need to have with somebody that you've decided to marry and stay with and be intimate with. And there are things you can't unsee and things you need to give people grace. And if you don't, you can be honest but not brutal. Brutal and honesty don't go together. We put them in the same sentence, but now all of a sudden, you really emphasizing the brutal. The honesty part is.
Well, I also feel that your personal relationships should be protected. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason why I've never specifically spoken about my personal relationships because I feel they should be protected. And I feel that they shouldn't be used as promo or a revenue source or clout or whatever else you call it, because all that shit doesn't matter. Because at some point the lights will get turned off and the cameras will dim, and you have to still live with that person.
Yes.
You still have to relate to that person. So why put it all out there and use it as material and use it to advance your career and use it for other people's entertainment, because they're going to go on to something else the next day. Yeah. As exciting as the entanglement was that week, no one gave a shit a week later, but Will still got to live with that shit. He still has to see the comments.
You have to have a certain amount of grace with the person that you're intimate with, a certain amount of grace. And I can't say where the line is for a lot of people. Like, I tend to say things out loud because I don't want somebody else to come up and be saying I said something. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, goddamn it, this would happen. Yeah. And so when you've lived your life a certain way and start out a certain way, like, you got to kind of finish it that way. But I think, I don't understand what the need. I just think you have to have a certain amount of grace for people. Yeah. A certain amount of empathy.
Mm-hmm. A$AP Rocky and Rihanna are expecting their first child.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this, and this is, we haven't ran this part of the clip yet, So I don't know how it's going to be really taken. But me and TK Kirkland had a conversation about this. And I mean, number one, listen, I've briefly interviewed Rihanna years ago, you know, and I met A$AP Rocky once or twice. I don't, the point is I don't know either of these people. These are total strangers to me. So I don't know them. But what surprised me a little bit, and TK kind of agreed with me on this, is that when you look at someone on the stature of a Rihanna, self-made female billionaire, one of the most desirable women in the world, you know, a monster on the music side, an even bigger monster on the fashion and makeup side and so forth. Millions of men lined up, you know, to be with her and so forth. She gets pregnant before getting married, which kind of surprised me. You know what I mean? Because me and TK talked about this, and TK was like, yeah, I mean, she's a baby mother. She's not a wife. Like, Rihanna is technically going to be a baby mother unless she gets married before, you know, she has the baby.
And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hear what Vlad is saying. He respects Rihanna so much. You don't want her to be called a baby mama.
Right.
I totally respect that. You don't, not Rihanna, not the billionaire who's done all this stuff. You should not have the title of a baby mama.
Exactly.
I respect that. I respect that.
And at this point, that's what she has. And this is not a knock at Rihanna. This is not a knock at A$AP Rocky.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like act your wage. You guys are at a very high level. And if you guys have decided to have babies with each other, like, this is a very big commitment. And this is really setting up for multi-generational wealth and so forth. Like,
it's a big responsibility. I totally agree. I totally agree with you 100%.
And when you look at people, her peers of that stature, Jay-Z and Beyonce, Alicia Keys and Swizz Beatz, you know, I think I'm forgetting one or two other people. You know, once you get into that financial status and you think about legacy and empire and so forth, that usually comes with marriage. It doesn't come with just having a bunch of kids with, you know, various people that you're romantic with. So that to me was a little bit of a disappointment. And as someone who's married yourself, how did you take that?
I'd have married Rihanna right now. I'd marry right now, even with
You call your wife, sorry.
Hey, baby. I think that one of the things that I find interesting about this whole situation is wealth is a tool. And you can use that tool to build whatever happiness you want, whatever semi-reality you want. And sometimes we have, you know, shaped their ideas through our prism. But if she's a billionaire and she gets to do, or a independent woman, she could do whatever she wants. And she did. And she doesn't have, like, when you talk about her peer, what, she got 2 people? Like, she wouldn't even be able to fill out a whole jury of her peers. Like, literally, it'd be like 4 people.
No, not true.
Like, it'd be 4 people, like
Offset and Cardi B.
No, not billionaires.
They have a lot of money.
Not like that.
They're
like
getting up there. Cardi B especially. Cardi B especially.
When you're talking about, I'm talking about Rihanna makes more money off the other. Even at that, she is a woman that comes from a country with the Bahamas.
She's not from the Bahamas.
Barbados.
She's from Barbados, yeah.
Comes from a different place. Come here and does it. I think it's dope. What I think is dope about this whole thing is watching a woman do exactly what the fuck she wants and say, I'm doing it. Exactly what the fuck she wants. Like, I just think it's dope that she just gonna say, I could be whatever. Cause from Chris Brown, that incident when we first really started to know it, to this, you see this independent, erudite, sophisticated, socialite businesswoman who's made a decision, as opposed to the first time she came into the public zeitgeist. Hey man, I think she to be able to kind of shape her reality and plant her flag and say, this is what I'm doing, I think it's dope.
Yeah, and I understand your point of view, but you know damn well that being a husband is a lot different than being a baby father. Living in the same house, having joint bank accounts, having an actual
the only
family.
person, like, I would have to talk to Stedman about that. Like, the only place, like, I wouldn't have, like
shit.
Like,
Stedman was in the guest house when he had COVID. Like,
I've never been in a position where they can leave the baby and she can leave the baby and take me and wouldn't need nothing from me.
That's not true.
Nothing.
Money wise. She doesn't need anything from you. But not having a father in the house all the time is a loss.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a loss.
Take yourself, look at your kids, right?
Right.
Look at your kids, especially with, your son, we talked about, his special needs
Right.
and everything else like that. Turn your relationship, look at all these years with your relationship with your kids and say, okay, I'm going to swap this out for every other weekend.
Right. It would, yeah.
They would not have turned out the same way.
It wouldn't have. And now, but take those and say, I'm going to swap you out every other weekend, but I'm going to be around her. And I wouldn't give a fuck what happened to them kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I think that the value in the father is oftentimes miscalculated because I think it's very important. I think that if you look at my son's situation was decidedly different than it would have been because he has his father in his life, and the less medicine, less treatment, it's
right.
provable.
This is what I'm saying.
But
I had a father in my life, and I don't think I would have turned out the way I did if my father was not around.
But I can hold these two ideas in my head. I can say, but I think it's dope that because if she's pregnant, she made a decision.
Yep, not to abort it.
She made a decision.
Birth
she
control.
made a decision to have this baby by this guy.
Yeah.
And it's dope that she is an articulate, bright, young, everyday, wealthy woman who made this decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, and they're saying they're going to get married after the baby comes. We'll see what happens. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. None of my business, but like I
hope
said,
Rihanna get me pregnant. I hope
you want to get pregnant by Rihanna. remember Chris Rock, I think was the tambourine man?
Yeah.
Where he said after he divorced his wife, he thought he could go holler at Rihanna.
Right.
And she looked at him like a grandfather or something. The look on her face was just so disgusted.
Yeah, he's funny.
He got his teeth fixed though. Remember the old Chris Rock?
Still Chris.
Since our last interview, Jesse Smollett has been found guilty on 5 out of 6 felony charges. He is now a convicted felon.
Right.
Getting an apartment will be a little challenging for him these days.
Yes.
Yes.
And all he had to do was keep his mouth closed. Like literally. Now I realize keep your mouth closed makes you a horrible gay dude, but a wonderful defendant. You might not get a date, but you won't get a court date either. Like he's a tough nut to crack. This dude is shut up. Shut up. I don't feel bad for him at all. Shut up.
I was actually supposed to interview the Nigerian brothers, actually. I remember one of their reps reached out to, hey, do they want to get the story out there? And then he took the stand and started saying how he had a gay relationship with one of them. And they're like, oh, never mind.
Right.
Never mind.
Right.
We don't want to talk anymore.
Right. He tried to shame them. But all he had to do was shut up. All he had to do was shut up. Shut up.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think one of the head police guys said that they probably would have dropped the charges had he just admitted what he did. Because what he did was not that serious. People don't usually go to prison over filing false police reports.
They don't.
But in his case, he decided to keep the lie going all the way through the whole investigation, into the courtroom, got on the stand, kept holding on to something he couldn't actually justify.
What he did at the time when there were escalation in racial attacks across the country, when black people, the fear was heightened.
Yeah.
When there are people who really really actually are being attacked. There were plots of attacking people. There were people plotting to attack people. You do this and keep it up. And now it jaundices every other investigation.
Yeah.
Because when a black does something good, it's just him. When he does something bad, it's all of us.
So you think black people look bad by him doing what he did?
It put people in danger.
Well, I mean, to me, because listen, you don't know early on. You don't know. Yeah, it sounded kind of like bullshit.
No,
you don't really know. No, but the moment was when the police went to his apartment with the body cam footage, and he had the noose around his neck. Like hours later.
When I first heard it, I knew it was a lie.
Really?
I knew it was a lie. Now I couldn't say I know because I didn't know, but I was like, this is bullshit.
What about when you saw the noose?
That was even
in
funnier.
the apartment.
I'm like, who? I'd have laughed if I'd have investigated that. But everybody, but you got to remember, this was in the crux of the Me Too movement, and you had to believe people, and so everybody has to believe the victim,
right?
And so, no one. The best you got from black people was silence.
Right. He called himself the gay Tupac.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what really pissed off a lot of people.
Right.
You got a lot of Tupac fans out there. You know what I mean? I'm just saying though, like, if I was attacked with any sort of weapon or anything, would I still have it on me? Like, I still got the axe in my head.
Well, they tell women who are attacked to not take a shower or get undressed to preserve the evidence. So I could see what his.
Oh, that was the justification?
I don't know what it was, but I tell you this. For me, I think that when people do stuff like that, remember everybody stamping up. We got justice for Jesse, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It was, but when I knew two groups were silent. One is black people, and one is the gay community, and both of them knew something.
They both.
And it was this nigga's lying. That's what I'm telling. Fuck black people gonna be. It was the coldest day in recorded North American history. And you going to fucking Subway. Are you out your goddamn mind? You know what? Chicago's a violent city. And then it was the most peaceful city in the country because nobody's going out in that weather.
But it's just so hard to be a criminal these days. Like, honestly, to everyone who's watching this, who thinks they got it figured out, you should have been a criminal back in the 70s.
Or at least 7 years ago. Like 7 years ago was a good time to be a criminal.
Yeah, I mean, but with cell phones and triangulation and cameras everywhere on the light posts.
But I'm talking like if you could do tech stuff, like I ain't gonna say that, but it's devolved from street crimes to like more tech savvy stuff.
But I'm just saying though, like they figured everything out within a couple of days. Yeah. Like, okay, he was right here. Oh, the Nigerian guy. Oh, we figured out where he was. Right. Oh, he was in this. Sporting goods store, and you actually see him buying the rope and all this other type of stuff, and it's all there on camera.
Dumb people, this is a bad season for stupidity.
Yeah.
And it's so rampant.
But I feel like these days, Michael Jai White said this. He said that stupidity has, in terms of salary, is highest that it's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
You can make more money being stupid now than ever before. You want to act out on the internet, you might get a Fashion Nova deal in the process. Whereas before, you'd just be stupid and broke.
It's a commodity.
Yeah. If you're willing to be stupid on camera, if you're willing to mess up people's time, mess up people's property,
dance fucking for no reason at all.
Yeah, wreck shit, get arrested for no reason, waste people's time, like fuck up businesses, you will get actually compensated. You get compensated.
If you do enough,
you get rewarded for bad behavior because of social media.
You will.
Whereas before, you would just lose your job and be homeless.
Yeah.
And have to go look for
when I
job.
saw remember when people was playing the crate challenge but not taking the vaccine? I'm like,
so
you let a nigga stack your crates in your front yard. You would trust a nigga stacking crates in your front yard, but not a sign. And when they get are there that many out of work DJs with all this fucking milk? Like what? Where do you get all these goddamn crates from?
I feel you.
And now you have time to stack them. And remember, it was so stupid. Instagram went, we ain't gonna show no more of these videos. But they'll show videos of stupid ass doctors saying dumbass shit about them. I don't understand.
Since last time, Draco the Ruler, someone who I interviewed maybe about a year before his death, was killed backstage at a concert in LA. And I remember me and his manager, TK Barron, we had this long conversation. He pointed out to me that I never really thought about before, was that this is the first time in hip hop history that at a concert, where someone that was supposed to be performing was actually killed backstage at the concert. Rappers have gotten killed over the years.
After.
You know what I mean? After the concert, at a studio, in the street, whatever else. But actually they're about to perform and they get murdered at the actual concert was such an anomaly. And the fact that it actually happened in LA and it was gang related and so forth just left such a bad taste in my
Remember
mouth.
last time we talked, and I talked about how much I love this city, but how I hated how many people it had taken.
Yeah.
Just look at, like, I love this city, but I hate that spirit here where you can just decide. And it's always, it's future presidents and people rap, like it's just, and it's one of the things that I think, as much as I love the city, I can't imagine living anywhere else full time. It's one of the things that I've always despised about it is how much, not just talent, but potential we've taken.
Yeah, and we've talked about used to be a blood, growing up. So you're very aware of the gang element. And, you look at the whole story, and from what I understand, the person who did it hasn't been caught. I mean, he was like stabbed in the neck. It was really a very brutal, ugly way to die.
Right.
And, but he had his gang affiliation. He made a song called Ingleweird,
right,
where he dissed the whole city.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's the reason for it, but when you take a step back and you say, well, it's probably likely led up to this, it was probably that type of shit.
In the end, it doesn't hold up to the light of day, whatever the reason was. And I think it's just really sad to me. Like when Ice-T, right before the
Super
Bowl was talking about, that's a real thing. And people have this romantic notion of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just spiraling out of control. But I hate that a city that I love so much seems to always be at the epicenter of this kind of stuff.
Well,
I don't like it.
Well, and that's because, and I've talked about this in a lot of other interviews, Crips and Bloods have had the best marketing of any gang in the history, I think, of the world.
Right.
Of the world.
Right.
You take any gang from any country, and they are not as well marketed as Crips and Bloods. Not only are there songs, hit songs about movies, rappers end up becoming gang members in their 20s and 30s when they're already millionaires, like the Chris Browns and the Lil Waynes of the world. It spread into Vietnam and Europe and New York and I'm sure Mexico and everything else like that. It's so, especially someone who hasn't really figured themselves out yet. Mm-hmm. It sounds so exciting. Like, ooh, I'm a blood. I can throw these gang signs. I'm part of this community of guys that'll protect me, and I could be tough as I want to whoever I want because I got these guys behind me. But, I mean, the reality of it is every gang member that I've interviewed has really had horrible stories to go along with it.
And it's such a, I remember when we were doing Dre and Snoop's performance, they had, everybody was crip walking.
Oh, Snoop threw up the Crip sign.
And I saw it. And I remember, it's such a romantic notion of it. And then there are people who are not romantic about it. It is their calling, it's what they do.
Yeah.
This is the thing that's so dangerous right about this time in our life. I don't think there's ever been a more stark division for people who have and who have not.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I see you have, and you show me that on Instagram, or I see you coming here, I'm getting to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. And you could just, and the thing that's unique about this city is they know where everything is.
Yeah.
And now lines, you'd have never thought, we lived here, how long you live here?
In LA since 2013, so what is that, 9 years?
I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen people running into Neiman Marcus and
just
Louis Vuitton and Burberry and Gucci and I've never seen that happen. So the lines there used to be lines. There were certain places you would be.
I mean, that's some 70s shit. Because I remember I interviewed this one dude who was part of the Lowlifes.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what they would do in like the 80s. They would go into department stores 100 deep, steal all the polo off the shelves, knock out the security guard, and just walk out with... They actually shut down a department store because of these guys. And now here we are yet again. running into Louis Vuitton, stealing a bunch of shit, running out.
Hammers and like, it was right before Christmas. Then I left the Nordstrom's in Topanga, and there were police everywhere. And this police officer saw me get in my car and drove me out of the parking lot to the freeway and turned back around.
Why?
To make sure like nobody followed me.
Huh.
And I saw him do it to like, I forgot who else was coming out. I'm like, that's how bad it is where people are like,
you got a police escort.
Following people, and the real kind. Like I'm like hearing people having lunch with people, like the lady having lunch with people and somebody like I've never seen it. I've never seen it like this where people, Calabasas, somebody was coming out of a restaurant. You heard about that 1 o'clock at night. They like you never saw it. Like there were places.
I haven't even heard of that, but yeah. Okay.
People like they whooped it. Like I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
no, there's been a string of break-ins and everything else like that in Calabasas, which you haven't heard of before.
Right.
You're right.
I've never seen this before.
New alarm system around that shit. Yeah.
I'm like, so now because the line between the haves and the have-nots is shrinking, if you have something and I want it, I'm going to get it.
Well, I mean, but there's also the social media showing off aspect where suddenly people are put into a mentality of, I can't wear the same outfit twice if I'm taking a picture of it. And I catch myself with this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm going to be
where do you see me next time with this same shit on?
There you go. But I'm saying like, yo, when I buy designer shit, I wear the shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? If I buy some Gucci shorts, I will wear them 200 times. And I'll be in a bunch of pictures with them. But a lot of people are like, oh, they don't want to get clowns for wearing the same shit in an Instagram photo. So therefore, they're doing things. I remember Foxy Brown's brother got arrested back in the day for like stealing Hermes belts or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, okay, I kind of get it. You got this superstar sister and you're not really doing anything. So you got to somehow
But now
keep
it's
up.
just now it's that people want it. They just want it because I want it.
Yeah.
And they want it. Even I ain't talking about taking pictures. I'm talking about people that'll see stuff on Instagram or wherever they see it and go, I'm going to get it.
Yeah. Doesn't
from
matter
you.
how. Yeah.
And it don't matter how.
Yeah. I mean, look, I just did an interview with Baby Blue from Pretty Ricky, who is now in prison doing 20 months over a PPP loan. He was involved in a $24 million PPP scam. And he broke down how it happened. And, you know, he felt it wasn't really his fault. He was working with some company and they sent him some money, you know, and he thought it was for something else. And, you know, and when all came out, it was all PPP loan shit and everything else like that. And, you know, he bought a Ferrari with it. And, you know, that's all part of the story now. And, you know.
But I'm talking about just, you want it. I just want it.
I just want it. And, you know.
Care how I get it. I'm getting ready to get it.
Yeah.
And there's not very many places in this country where you don't see the line. All I got to do is go across La Brea.
Yeah.
Get on a one-on-one.
And the love of material items, because there was right before he had to turn himself in, he had this big, huge Cuban link chain, right? This huge, ridiculous chain. And he was coming out of a bowling alley and some guys ran up on him and tried to take it. And he ended up getting shot in the process. And I'm like, number one, I'm assuming you insure your jewelry, right? Because I know I insure all my jewelry. Right. So the monetary loss probably would not have been that significant. And he was like, man, listen, man, I'm from Miami. I just can't imagine another dude out there taking pictures of my chain. So I was willing to go all out for that chain. And honestly, I just didn't get it. I'm like, I'm not feeling you right now. I just don't get it. Like, because you could have my jewelry. I'd rather go on living my life.
Now. Right. And right now, what is here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm going home.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll be here next week. You can rob me again because I'm not.
Right. You can have it. If someone try, like, I'm going to put this out. If you try to rob me, you could have it. I'm not going to put up a fight. I'm not going to put up a fight. I don't care if you take a picture with my watch on Instagram afterwards. I don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't give a shit. My life and my safety, you know what I mean? Because now
and if you wear it better than me, I will like your picture.
I'll make a comment.
Right.
Oh, you rocking that. I never thought you were with that outfit before.
People have this, like my security, man. I say, man, I'll be on the phone with Carmel, my insurance agent, so goddamn fast.
Right.
I don't understand the need to kill somebody over it either.
Right.
I don't have this. If it ain't about my people I love or my life,
yeah, I'll die protecting somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll do that. I
will
not
die. Happy. I won't be happy.
I won't be happy about it.
So you couldn't run because you had to wear fucking red bottoms. We couldn't run. But
now I'm dead.
Right. See
the fuck.
I'll hunt you too. Ooh, bitch. I think there is this air of material. And the thing I've noticed about here, and I love this city, and it's just, you just don't see these kinds of people, this abstract, poverty, and then this obscene wealth in the same spaces so frequently.
Yeah.
Like you just don't, they're in the same, it's like, you know what it's like? LA is starting to be like, you know how water buffalo are crossing the river and all the crocodiles are waiting? It's that.
It's that.
they gotta come this way.
We'll just wait.
Just wait.
They'll just wait. You know, because since our last interview, Young Dolph got killed in Memphis. Right?
Yeah.
We've done one interview with him before. I wasn't the one doing it. And they caught the guys who did it. Right? No surprise. Right. It's on camera. Like a bunch of stuff matched up. It wasn't that hard for the police to actually locate them. And the guys have now stood in front of the judge 2 times. And they said they can't afford a lawyer.
I saw it.
And when you look at their Instagram pages, they're wearing jewelry. Mm-hmm. They're rolling around in Benzes. They're wearing designer clothes. All that, and you don't even have lawyer money when you get caught doing a murder. All that, and you cannot afford a goddamn lawyer. You're going to get a public defender for a murder trial. Good luck with that shit.
It don't really matter who you had. They're going to jail, but.
Well, you know, shit, OJ got off. You know what I'm saying? A lawyer will do wonders. A great lawyer will do wonders. Come on now.
OJ was a beloved figure. He was beloved by everybody till then.
Till then?
He was beloved.
Really?
He had a Hertz commercial. He was doing Naked Gun. He was beloved. Nobody, these, listen, I just think we live, it's an interesting time we live in. It's very sad that now we're so connected to these things. And people are losing, like the people that people respond to and are kind of, responded to in a way that they just don't to everybody else, are being killed. This is crazy.
Bob Saget recently passed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a picture of the two of you together. How well did you know him?
Very well.
Very well.
Very well.
Oh, I'm so sorry then.
It's funny.
I'm so sorry for your loss. I didn't know that.
But I was in Birmingham. So right before, it was June. 2 things. I remember when I got COVID, Bob was one of the first people to call me, and he was like really, he was like tearing up because he saw me pass out. It was like Bob, I think I'm good. But a year later, so it would have been this June, we were on the plane together. We were both flying to Orlando, staying at the same hotel. The hotel, it was the hotel we always stay at. I stayed there.
Oh, where he died. Oh, okay.
And we talked the whole time. Like he was getting ready to do I was playing a gig, and he was going to do either Comic-Con or something where he was there doing memorabilia or something. And we talked from LA to Orlando. And we were supposed to have dinner, and we didn't. And so that's maybe June, July, or August, somewhere along. And then I am in Birmingham, and I get a call from my social media guy, and he goes, "Man, I'm sorry about Bob." And I'm like, "Bob who?" And he's like, "Bob Saget." And I could not believe it. And it's just, it's a weird thing. And he was a good dude. And it's just, it shows you that we're living at a time that's really more fluid than I don't remember a time like this where things were happening at this pace. And I'm sure they were, but it just feels so fluid to me.
Yeah, because I guess he had bumped his head. He had a bad head, like a fall or something like that. And there was some bleeding internally, and he went to sleep and didn't wake up.
And so you know how paranoid I am. And so now, man, it's very. And then who do we lose after that? Somebody else after that.
We lost a bunch of people. We lost. Well, I mean, AJ Johnson passed away. Did you know him?
I wasn't. No, AJ and I used to talk all the time. And
I interviewed him. And I could tell you, when I interviewed him, this was not Ezel from Friday.
No.
This was someone that wasn't quite there. There was a lot of parts of that interview we just had to cut out because he'd ask me to repeat the question, multiple times. And I guess he had a stroke, maybe a few years before then. And ultimately, they said it was from alcohol.
Yeah.
He just had a bad drinking problem for probably decades, and it just caught up with him. Yeah. Sad.
It is sad. It is.
Louis Anderson passed away. Did you know him?
Very well. Matter of fact, I work with Louis.
My condolences as well.
Man, it's a weird fraternity. I worked with Louis the last time, like a year and a half ago. A comic named Jay Mandian, who's one of the writers, a talented kid, but he's a young comic. So he asked me to come on out there. We're doing something at the Laugh Factory. And I was telling you, I never go to work out. I'm always gigging for real. So I go to work out at the Laugh Factory. And, these is industry audiences. So, right before I come on, Louis Anderson's talking about loving each other and being just good to each other. And I'm like, and so he introduced me and I go, what the fuck are we going to talk about now? And I got off stage. I did my set. We got off stage and we laughed. And he for a long time was one of my favorite comedians.
Really? I remember his old stand-ups. Like people don't remember because it was like the 80s. Because he really stopped doing, big stand-ups, whatever. After he started after coming to America.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He was one of my, like the way he structured jokes, his cadence, his pace. He was one of my favorite comics.
Oh, he had this joke back in the day how his mom bought a toaster cord from a garage sale. And when he asked her why, she said it was only a quarter. He goes, okay, next time at the grocery store, I'm short $1. I'll give him 4 toaster cords. I said, my mom would pay for it. And it'd be shit like that. He had his own cartoon, I think, at one point.
Louis,
Coming to America, coming
Baskets,
to America. Yeah, man. People sleep on him.
Yeah.
He was a great one.
He was a great one.
We lost Betty White.
Yeah.
Almost made it to 100.
Yeah, but that's all deaths are tragic, but
you expected that one.
Yeah. 99.
Yeah,
I knew it was gonna happen when they said she's coming up on her 100th birthday. I was like, these motherfuckers done jinxed her.
They jinxed her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sidney Poitier passed away as well.
Older, but good run.
Yeah, he had a hell of a career.
And still stayed like sharp all through, like every time something was sharp.
You met him?
Yeah.
I never got to meet him.
Yeah, it's sharp. Like I always knew what was going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, this life ain't promised to us. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You bump your head and then you don't wake up when you go to sleep.
That's
man.
But it's better than getting eaten by like a fucking alligator or some shit like that. It's man.
At least they didn't get
man. It's so many. It's better than
you should have spoken at his funeral.
Man.
At least they get eaten by an alligator, y'all.
That. Oh my God.
It could have been worse.
Shit.
DL Hughley, man, always a pleasure.
Likewise,
it's been a year and a half.
Yeah, and we made up for it, goddamn. We did 7 interviews.
This interview lasted a year and a half.
Yeah.
So we made up for lost time, man. Congratulations. Do you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm actually, I just turned in the script to Fox Thursday, so we get no tomorrow.
A script for a TV show? A new sitcom? Is it going to be the Hugleys again?
It's going to be me now, but my name will be Hughes on the show, but yeah.
Okay.
I'll be a radio show host who always says things that get in trouble, and I have a wife who's very religious and a daughter who's gay and a son who has Asperger's.
So your actual family.
My actual life.
It's like a version of the Cosby Show.
Right. Well, except I won't drug anybody.
You won't drug anybody.
We won't even have coffee on the set.
Any stand-up specials coming up?
I'm writing one right now.
You're writing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was supposed to do it last year, but then COVID. And
because your last one was on Netflix, right?
It was on Netflix. So
Dope.
I'm writing it right now.
Dope. Any books coming up? Because you're big on that as well?
Man, I wrote 5 books in 5 years. I'm tired.
You're tired.
I'm going to write another one pretty soon, but not
That's now. What it is. DL Hughley, man, always a pleasure. Until next time.
Likewise, Vlad.
Peace.